up, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the Apex, the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the ALGS Open Preview Show with me and Don. We're going to go through and talk about just about every single team that we can. Obviously, there's 160 teams, so there's going to be some that, Don knows everything about every team, but we're not going to go through every single one, if that makes sense. There is so many teams. This episode would take 5 hours if we wanted to talk about all of them. But we're going to go through some of the big storylines, some of the big name teams that you're going to know about, as well as some other teams that maybe you don't know about, but you should. So we're going to run through all of that. We're going to go by individual groups. There are 8 groups heading into this LAN that we're going to highlight and go through. And then on top of that, we're going to talk about some other cool stuff that has been going on around Apex Legends. So Don, before we get into this, let's first start off by talking about the fact that you have gone through and created a guide for all 160 teams. You're almost done with it. Are you alive?
I think part of my soul has definitely died throughout this process. It was something that I should never have probably undertaken as a project, but I know the guides for champs did really well, and I kind of just made the decision that, if we're going to continue to put out content, from a podcast side and me as an individual, it's something I really wanted to take on. I will be working on hopefully finding an automated way to do it in the future, so I'm not literally typing everything out. Shout out to Pask and Burke for who helped this weekend with getting some of that typed out, but no, outside of, losing a part of my soul, I'm definitely doing good, definitely tired, but it's definitely going to be worth it when it's all out there for everybody to see. Hopefully everybody will get a good use out of it. I know hopefully when we're recording here, we'll get a good use out of it. So I think, after all said and done, it will be worth it. Just maybe not today.
Yeah, it's been definitely an undertaking. Lots of long nights with you in the Discord trying to make sure you guys get that thing out there and ready to go. And this is something that you wanted to do, and it's almost done. And I can honestly say, man, like looking through some of this, for the people out there who are trying to learn more, they're going to get a lot out of this guide and out of this list. So it's going to be super cool to watch people enjoy your hard work, man, because it's been a lot of hard work. Before we get into the actual first group here, I also wanted to highlight something that I found was really cool. I guess it's been a thing for a while, and I just didn't even know about it. I hadn't seen it. It just randomly popped up on the Apex the Podcast Twitter feed. ALGS Fantasy. I've been playing fantasy football for years. I was in the same fantasy baseball league for about 10 years with people I didn't even know. They roasted me every single year. I think my overall record in that fantasy league was like 54 and 180, something crazy. Like I'm terrible at fantasy.
It's like the Rockies.
It's legitimately impressive how bad I was at fantasy baseball. But I love fantasy sports. It's fun, man. It's a great time. And we have ALGS Fantasy that has been going strong. I don't know how long it's been going, but they've had it out there. And I reached out to some of the people. I know, Dawn, you talked to them too. And It was just, I feel like for people who aren't going to New Orleans, I think this is just something fun that you can do on the side to have a great time and enjoy the Open. You've got 160 teams. Things are going to be going haywire. You might as well enjoy it with some fantasy and get yourself some opportunity to earn some Apex coins at the same time, Don.
Yeah. And Wyatt will be going into it about how it works a little bit. We'll also probably plug it, either in the comments or the description, and also on Twitter for those who want to see it. But a big shout out to Paige and a big shout out to Rue. The two people and masterminds kind of behind the whole thing. A lot like me, they started basically from a spreadsheet, and thankfully they have found the automation. I still got to get to that point at some point, but no, they've put in a ton of work. I got the chance to jump in Discord and talk with her a couple times here over the past couple weeks, and I can tell you, like, she's put in a ton of work. Rue's also put in a ton of work as well. And yeah, I think it's just something cool. We obviously were huge into Prize Picks when that was going on with Apex there for a while. Unfortunately, it seems like that is not the case, at least at this time. But this is a great way to, I think, just another way to have fun with it, right? We're all looking for outlets to, compete with our friends or find another way to play or engage the content we're going to see. So, I'm definitely excited to try it out for the first time here at the Open. I think it's been for at least over a year because they have like the Germany, the LA champs, like they've got all that on the website. So they've been putting in some work for a while, and I'm glad we're going to be using it and being a part of it now.
Yeah, so it's very easy to sign up. It's so simple. Literally, when I found it on my Twitter, I signed up in 5 seconds. I click. All you got to do is you just click on the little website login thing inside the little link tree at the top of their Twitter or wherever you find it, and then you just log in with Discord, and then you can just start making your picks from there. To claim prizes, you do have to be a part of the Discord, and it's 100% free for anybody to play. Just so everybody knows, it's 100% free. FREE free. Literally, the only thing you're using is your time and a little bit of brain power to make up your team. But it's very simple. I'm not going to go through the entire process because it involves some other things that I'd have to go through and explain. But it's pretty basic. Literally, all you have to do is you just make your picks. You just make a team. You get crafting materials to essentially make a team, a roster, and it's kind of like something we used to do in the Apex a long time ago when Finn was still on the show, where it was basically we would get like a Reddit question and be like, make the perfect team for this situation. That's basically what ALGS fantasy is, except obviously your situation is to get the most points. The points are accumulated by individual players' KP and their team's placement within the games that they use in the ALGS point system for placement. Obviously, first is a 12 points for all three players, which creates your overall score for that set of games. If you decided to pick a coach and your team coaches win, you get an extra 10 points on your score each time they win. That's something new that they added. They also added in coaches now. So it's pretty cool, man. Like, you don't just have to pick the three players, you get the coach as well. So it's going to be really cool. Very simple to use. Like I said, if you have any questions, it's all inside that Discord, or you can probably DM Paige and Rue to get more information as well. That's all we had to do. Once again,
Yeah.
we had no knowledge of any of this
No.
leading into this. And then I found it and I was like, oh my God, like at the open, that's going to be a super fun time, especially with how competitive like me, Jay, Jumbo, all the boys are going to be trying to beat each other and try to create the perfect squad. So if you guys want to participate, shout out to them. And I think their Twitter account is ALGS_fantasy. And then you can just log in from there.
And big shout out too that there is prizes for doing the best. If you lead the daily leaderboard at the end of the day, you do get free Apex coins. So if you definitely want to be a part of it, that one skin that you never seem to have enough coins for, or whatever the case is, definitely feel free to get involved. Like he said, it is absolutely free. And again, it's two people that definitely put in a ton of work. And again, we'll I'm sure somewhere like in the description or something, we can probably add their handles or whatever we need to help you guys get there. But I saw earlier there's already over 1,200 people that have signed up so far, which is amazing to see. And we're just hoping to help spread the word a little bit too. And definitely big shout out to them. Definitely excited to do it.
Yeah, it's just something we saw, and then we just wanted to shout out. I mean, obviously, like I loved doing the prize picks thing; it was super fun, and I'm always trying to find a way to just have a little bit of extra fun while I'm playing or watching people play at these events. So just sign up there, man. It's going to be super fun. Like Donnie said, we'll have it down in the description down below. Okay, so before we get into all of the groups, we do have to make sure once again we go over the format for any of you guys who aren't 100% familiar with what's going to be going on at this open. So let's run through it real fast. The competition will utilize a double elimination bracket format with a match point finals as players fight for a piece of the $1 million prize pool, as well as championship qualification points. All 160 teams will be assigned a starting position in the double elimination bracket based on their Split 1 Pro League or Challenger Circuit performance. After each series in the winners bracket, the top 10 teams will advance to the next winners bracket round, while the bottom 10 teams are dropped to the elimination bracket. At the end of each series in the elimination bracket, the top 10 teams will advance to the next elimination bracket round, while the bottom 10 teams will be eliminated from the tournament. That leaves the final 20 teams, and they will compete in the match point finals, in which teams must reach a predetermined 50-point threshold to activate match point. We will have our ALGS Open champions when a team that has activated match point in the previous match wins. So, very similar in the final set to what we already know. Everything else is a little bit different. 160 teams, a lot more teams, a lot more time, a lot more stages. All of that is what we're going to be going through. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but once again, double elimination. You want to meet if you theoretically you want to make top 10 every single time. That's what you're trying to do. That's basically it. So that is basically it. You have anything else, Don?
No, I mean that definitely covers the majority of it. Like you said, just aiming for that top 10 each and every time coming out. And as you keep moving in the winners bracket, we're going to see a lot more and more top tier lobbies. I think a lot of people are used to with other lands. So might be a little interesting to see some of these challenger circuit teams early on who can kind of pull off those early upsets if there are any. But if people remember kind of like the PLGS format, just to kind of think of like that except for on stage, and those teams that get eliminated or like don't make the top 10 in that first round still have a chance to work their way back. So the biggest thing though is that for anybody that's played double nation format, any sort of sports, you definitely don't want to do it early, because that just means you're playing, in this case, 12, 16, 18 more games than some other teams. So it's if there's one word, it's just chaos. I think it's gonna be absolute chaos. And honestly, I'm here for it. I don't know how you feel about the format, but I'm here for it.
I like it. It's the open, right? The open's
Yeah.
going to be different. It's the craziest type of format we've ever had, I think, because even EWC I don't think was this chaotic. So
Yeah.
it's going to be insane. I do think we're going to see some big name teams drop early and have to fight their way through. And
Yeah.
when we get into some of these teams, we'll probably go over some of them that we think might drop a little bit early, just be based on whatever their form is currently or just how things have gone recently. So we'll have to see. But there's going to be some teams that do well that you don't expect, and there's going to be some teams that struggle out the gate and have to battle back. But Don, I think it's time to get into the groups.
Let's do
Let's
it.
kick it off with group number 1. But now they don't really have specific names. I kind of just went based off the ALGS website, and I just went through each of the groups and kind of screenshotted it. And so that's kind of how we are going to go through it. And this first group that we're going to go through right here, it features some pretty big name teams. We've got LG in there. We've got ExoClan. We've got Riddle Order. And then we have the current NA leader in Pro League, Virtus Pro. If you want to go listen to that interview with Zach Mazer from Virtus Pro, you can go listen to that. That was a very good show last week. Don, going through this team, we do have some heavy hitters, but we also do have a lot of unknown, unnamed teams as we go into this. I want to throw it down to you, and you talk about the first team that comes to mind when you look at this group number 1.
Yeah, I think for me, definitely one of the teams we want to look at is LG. I think, obviously, I think you'll probably get into Virtus Pro a little bit more here in a minute, but at least for me, LG, they're a team that definitely at times we've seen them be a team that can consistently place, top fives, top tens. Back in LA, they finished top 10 at the LAN, but then kind of as they went throughout the year, they started to struggle kind of in the middle to late part of tournaments. And now with the legend bans, now with kind of having to play a different strategy, what is their response now moving forward? We haven't really quite seen the consistent same form as we have from LG teams in the past. But we do know that when they're on top of their game, they can absolutely fry with anybody. They can absolutely help dominate a lobby with anybody. So I'll be very interested to see what form we get from them. Again, somebody we always keep an eye on that team is Shuby. He's a guy that's been well known for his Newcastle play, but now has been transitioning a lot to playing, the Ashes, the Race, the Ballistics when the Newcastle gets banned. So kind of seeing how that dynamic's going to work. What is the luminosity we're going to get at this tournament? Is it going to be the one that was top 10 and was making match point, making match point in the finals lobby, or is it the one that we saw completely miss the finals lobby at champs? So I'm very interested to see which team we get for sure.
Yeah. And moving a little bit further into LG, we've seen the same thing in Pro League as well. They had a banger first day, and then their second day, I believe they were like bottom 3, bottom 4. So they've had this weird thing of inconsistency where they seem to struggle at certain points. And I've talked a lot about this team in the past because they were the former Cloud9 team that I was following very close last season. And the one thing that I've noticed a lot with this LG squad is it all matters on how Saucer is making calls for that day. He struggled with confidence in the past. When he's confident, man, they are unstoppable, it seems like. And especially with the roles that that you mentioned Shuby has been flexing into, they just seem unstoppable at certain points. I remember the day they went hard in NA Pro League. You had Shuby with a Peacekeeper on fingers of Launchpad, just absolutely decimating the final squad so that they can get their win. When they're playing like that, they're unbeatable. But then there are times where you can see Saucer kind of question himself a little bit. And that's when they run into a little bit of trouble. So if he can remain confident, keep himself in the zone at that time, I'm very, very confident that we can see this team make a finals lobby here, especially when they have a lot of teams that aren't up to their level that you can kind of beat up on. And it sounds weird to say it like that, but that does feed into confidence. I mean, think about it when you're playing your games just at home by yourself, right? If you're playing in lobbies that you know that you're a little bit on the higher echelon of, and you're getting 4, 5, 6, 7 kills a game, that just leads into much better confidence moving into lobbies where maybe you have, teams that are a little bit better than you. It allows you to have the confidence going into those fights. And a lot of times with BRs, confidence is key. They've talked about it a lot, not just in our show, but just overall. If you watch any content from any pro creator, a lot of what you need is the confidence and the ability to believe in yourself and know that you can handle any team that comes your way. So it really is going to come down to that for LG. And I'm hoping that they can prove to everybody that they are the team that we've seen dominate in those NA Pro Leagues and then dominate in those finals lobbies as well. That's what I'm hoping to see. So we'll see if we can get that from LG coming through. I'm going to move into the team I want to talk about here. And we've talked about them a ton the last couple of weeks. I know people are probably tired of it, but I'm going to go into Virtus Pro. I think Virtus Pro is in good form. This is another team, once again, where they are a little bit inconsistent. But the one thing we found with their inconsistencies is in the past, they would have inconsistent days, right? You're having days where you're 20th and then days where you're first. Now, what this team is getting is inconsistent matches, which is a much better outcome that you'd rather have if you're VP and Zach Mazer, right? Because at least when you're getting inconsistent matches, you're getting a 20th place, but then you're able to bounce back and get like 2 wins in a row. Okay, you're still going to get the points in Pro League for that day. When they can minimize all their mistakes and just make it to one small instance rather than an entire day, it really just shows how much this team has improved and how far they've come. And I think what Zach Mazer was talking about last week with Slayer and how much he has improved as a player overall is going to be the biggest key here. How do they perform with Slayer on that day? If you listen to that interview, Zach says that they are a tournament team. They are a team that performs much better on tournament days, and it showed in Sapporo. I mean, they get 5th place overall. They did start very slow, but they were able to bounce back. They potentially could have won that final game and then had another one. And who knows at that point, they would have been at match point. But I think VP in the form that they're currently in, they're going to be a dangerous team in this group. And I'll probably say the most dangerous team coming out of this group.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the biggest thing for VP is going to be how they get through these first couple stages of the tournament, right? Because, we'll go into kind of towards the end what the format's going to be. So everybody's kind of aware of how it's going to work. But really, I think a lot of these big teams, there's just going to be a ton of unknowns when it comes to a lot of these teams early on, right? It's going to be a lot of challenger circuits teams, going to be a lot of replacement teams that are coming in that you're not really going to have a ton of data on. And what is VP's kind of reaction to that? I think once we see them get into like finals lobbies and things like that, we typically see Zach Mazer teams typically do well. They've obviously had like the contest situation with Nasty where that, that's kind of its own outlier sort of a thing. I think overall Zach Mazer teams typically do well in finals type environments. So I'll be really interested to see how they negotiate the first part of the tournament, and where they go in terms of just making sure they're, taking care of business, getting out of those, maybe not the first round, but really like those second, third rounds to make it through winners. And if they do have to negotiate the losers portion of the bracket, what that looks like for them. I think in their current form, I don't really have any doubts that they doubts about them making the finals lobby. But like I said, it's just always interesting to see kind of these teams that are in form. Is it one thing where they're peaking too early, or is it one thing that they're coming in hot at the right time and we're going to see them make a huge run? So I definitely expect them to make finals. I definitely expect them to make an impact, but I'll just be very interested to see where they negotiate the first part of the tournament.
Now, Don, when it moves into some of the other teams in this region, maybe one that's not well known, is there a team that stands out to you from Group 1?
Yeah, I think for me, looking down the list, I'm very curious to see what Team Nemesis looks like. They're a team, they are from EMEA, and they consist of a couple well-known players that people have known in the past, Noises and Remix Powers. Remix comes over from the Noctum Esports roster that kind of started making a little bit of noise at this last champs. They ended up obviously splitting up just because the org did leave Apex, so they kind of went their own ways. But Remix has done a really good job with Noises and their third Zuni, who Zuni is also making his first LAN appearance. But they've done a really good job in Pro League so far. They're 5th overall in EMEA Pro League. They're 3rd overall in damage. They're 2nd in kills and 3rd in plus minus in terms of damage. Remix and Zuni both being in the top 10 in kills. They've done a really good job, I think, of controlling a lot of lobbies, getting a lot of KP, and really building up a good amount of points to start with in terms of Pro League itself. And I think they come in it's a pretty solid form. Again, is this something that just remains strictly in Pro League, or is this something that they can carry over to a LAN format? That'll obviously be their biggest question. But I really am excited to see what they look like. And I think the only other team I'll just mention really quick is Riddle Order. They're kind of on the opposite end, where they are very well known in terms of their players. They've got Meltstera, who comes from Fnatic. They've got Saku, who has been on multiple LAN teams, and Taida, who's been on past North Eption teams. They're 27th in their Pro League right now, which obviously is not where you want to be. So no. I'm very curious to see where they shape up, if they can find some form at this LAN. When it comes to like teams struggling, what do you think like ultimately this is the mindset that they can figure out why you guys like we've seen teams kind of struggle when they come in, but they kind of find a way at LANs. What do you think like could be something they could maybe do at this LAN to perform better?
I think it goes back to what I said earlier with these early like lobbies, right? Because obviously the format is the format. You have a chance to play against teams that are not to your level. And I think if you can beat up on some of these teams early, I truthfully believe some of these teams need to just beat the hell out of some of these other teams that aren't to their level. Like if you can get a good amount of confidence, a good amount of just momentum moving forward into some of those later rounds, that's going to be gigantic. So if they can just come out and have an absolute crazy game, and I think we're going to see some nuts games, by the way.
Yeah,
I think we're going to see some games where teams drop like 30 kills. It sounds crazy, but I do think we're going to see some of those with some of the way these lobbies have shook out. But if they can have just an absolute insane couple games, feeling good, moving confidently throughout some of these lobbies, man, is going to be the key. I think that's going to be huge.
Yeah. Was there anybody else you wanted to look at before we moved on to the second group?
Yeah, my final team that I wanted to talk about from Group 1 was ExoClan. And I have a little bit of a connection with ExoClan from Chaotic. And remember, I was talking a little bit about that Luminosity team, how I'd followed them when they were Cloud9. Obviously, Chaotic started off on that team before he decided to leave NA, go back to EMEA. And so I have a little bit of a connection to Chaotic. I like to see him do well. And looking at this ExoClan team currently, they're not sitting in the best spot in their Pro League, but it's still very early, and it's not like they're completely out of it. I think they're tied for 11th, and I believe they're only 4 or 5 points back from being within that top 8. So ExoClan is looking good, not great. They still have a lot to be working on here, but currently the squad sits at K-Swinny, Arctic, and Chaotic, like I mentioned earlier, and I just want to see what they can do. I remember looking back at ExoClan at EWC and seeing how they kind of broke out of their shell a little bit. Now, obviously, that wasn't the same squad that they have here, but they did still have K-Swinny. So we'll see what happens here with EXO. I don't really have any like full in-depth analysis on how the team's been playing or how they're looking moving forward. But I do think, once again, this is a team that can get a lot of confidence moving forward. When Chaotic gets going, he gets going. And that was something I noticed when he was playing with Cloud9. It seemed like with Cloud9, they were either getting a ton of kills and Chaotic was at the forefront of that, or they weren't getting any. And he was way behind. So I just want to see what Chaotic can do sitting with EXO. That's going to be one I'm keeping an eye on and seeing if they can come out of that group looking confident moving into whatever groups they move forward into throughout the rest of the day. But
I'll be interested to see if they continue to run the Maggie comp they've been running. It's definitely been a pick that hasn't been as worldwide so far, but they've been super aggressive, and their biggest problem just has been, can they make enough end games to get the placement points they need to really continue to get into those deeper rounds of tournaments. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, they're definitely a team to look out for. It's gonna be very interesting to see how they do.
All right, so that is Group 1. Let's move into Group number 2 here. We've got some heavy hitters moving into Group 2. Obviously, Go Next, not the one that just won the championship, but still a very formidable squad in their own right. You got Pioneers, you've got Reject Winity, you've got FaZe Clan, and then probably the biggest one here, you've got Shopify Rebellion. Shopify Rebellion sitting atop in this group. They are the Great White. They are at the top of the food chain here. Don, if we want to go through and talk about some of the teams, let's kick it off. One that you're looking at in group number 2.
Yeah, I think we got to start with Shopify. I think obviously that's the pretty easy apple to pick on that one. They're definitely a team that comes in some really good form. We obviously saw them do a very good job in their last match day heading into LAN. And again, just anytime we get into a big competition like this, you got to consider the roster that they have with MT, with Koiful, with Zainu. 3 of the better players that have come across Apex. And it's going to be very interesting to see, again, if you want to talk about numbers that get put up, just they could be one of those teams that puts up some crazy numbers, because I remember watching them in some BLGS tournaments when we had when we had that going on, and they were putting up, 100-point sets in 4 games. Like it was pretty ridiculous what they were doing to those lobbies. So for some of these other teams that are maybe some replacement teams or challenger circuit teams that got paired with Shopify, my only advice as a analyst, I guess, now, if we want to continue to put that note out there, is maybe just play hide and seek. Like, honestly, like it might just be a case of just not picking a fight early when you don't need to when you're going up against Shopify, because they're just going to run at people in these early rounds. So it'll be very interesting to see how they do. I'm very excited to see how they perform on LAN once again, and I think that they'll definitely be, when all said and done, they'll be one of those teams that we're looking at as making match point and just seeing if they can be that team that closes it out this time.
Yeah, spoiler alert, I think they're my winner. I typically don't choose the team that's blaring, just staring you straight in the face. I usually try to go for some teams that maybe would surprise some people as a winner. I'm pretty sure this is going to be my winner here. And we still got, all these other groups to go through. But just watching them play last week and watching how they were able to create their own opportunities seemingly out of nothing, watching Zainu and Koiful become the Bash Brothers and just smash teams while MT is just sitting in his drone. I don't think there's a lot of teams that have that ability, have that talent, have that skill, and then also have those comms. And not to mention, when you have Koiful on your team, there are 1v3s that can be had. There are 1v1s that you're confident in. I just feel like this team is at the tippity top, the zenith of where they need to be heading into the ALGS Open. I don't care how many teams. You could do 1 versus 159, and I think they'd come out looking pretty against most of these teams. So we'll get into our predictions at the end of the show, but I wanted to move in and talk a little bit about Go Next. Go Next has been a big surprise for me, and I don't know why. I don't think they should have been a big surprise for me, but they are. And I think what's been so fun to watch with them is how aggressive they are and how much they love to fight. And a lot of those times they're coming away with those fights. If you're unfamiliar with Go Next, that is obviously Kinda, that is iHenchman, and that is Atnum. That is the team that was formerly Navi, who they've swapped orgs now. But they to me look like a team. I don't know if they're going to make a finals lobby. I'm not sure if I'm at that point of saying they're going to make finals, but what I will say is they're going to be one of the funnest teams to watch, and they're going to be one that's going to be on your screen if you're watching at home a lot. You're going to see them a lot. They're just going to send fights over and over and over and over again. And it seems like there's always a team at every LAN that I go to or watch where you see them a lot, and then when finals comes, you're like, wait, where is that team? And they didn't make it, but they just fought a shitload. I think this is going to be that team. And honestly, if they fight well enough, you could see them in the finals, and I would not be surprised. I don't think they have the ability to win it right now, because I still think they have a little bit more cohesion that needs to be had, and you can't always just send everything and expect to win. But I do think that they're going to be one of the most fun teams to watch, and I think they're going to gain a ton of fans from this event. So I'm super excited to watch Go Next.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the biggest thing I'll be very interested to see is what is that game plan when it comes to LAN, because obviously we saw those Navi rosters in the past, like really outside of Germany when they had that good start. We really didn't see a great game plan coming in. And with Atnum coming in and being the IGL, and with Afro coming in as the coach, I've definitely seen a little bit of a different shift. Like they definitely still play extremely aggressive in Pro League, but having seen how Atnum's teams played at LAN and how well they did at placing and getting to end game, that's really where Navi struggled, was getting to that end game and getting those extra placement points. Because again, I think they could fight with a lot of teams. It was just they weren't positioning themselves well on the map. So I'll be very interested to see with Atnam coming in if he is able to put them in a lot better positions and take a lot smarter fights to gain something versus fighting just for the sake of fighting. So I think that's definitely a really good shout. I'm gonna go ahead and say that I do see them actually making finals. I think it could be
Ooh.
very close, but I really do like Atnam as the addition as the IGL because I do think he's going to bring a much different game plan and perspective when it comes to land, especially with him now gaining that experience, getting multiple lands last year, and also doing very well of making finals of both those lands. So very curious to see. I do think they sneak into finals. And yeah, I'd expect a lot of good things from them. Hopefully, and hopefully that's not a curse. We might come back, and it's probably going to be a curse for
It's going to be a
my
curse.
luck. It's going to be a
Yeah,
curse,
it's going
but
to be a curse. And
I
whatever jersey Don buys, you need to keep close tabs on. Whatever he
yeah,
buys at this land, you need,
that might
it
be a
could
line
ruin
we have to
everything.
bet is how many teams I just absolutely nuke to the ground with jerseys I buy. Is it
Yeah.
over under like 5.5? Like I don't even know.
Yeah.
We'll update you guys maybe on the post land podcast how well that went. So
All right, Don. So we got through some of the teams that we expect to do well. Is there one team that stands out to you that you're kind of wondering about, and maybe people need to start learning about heading into the Open?
yeah, I will say I'm very interested to see what Reject does at this land. I think their first match day didn't go as well as they would have hoped. They definitely didn't get off to as good a start as I think they would have wanted. But then they definitely came out. I'm just looking here real quick just to fact check myself. Yeah, they got 19th in their first match day, but then they came out and won their second match day, and that was in a huge race between them, GHS, and Noisy Fox. It was literally 68, 67, 65, so it was a really good match day. Reject definitely found out some things, I think, from that first match day that helped them propel themselves to a lot better day the second time around. That is Eurese's team. For some NA fans should know who Eurese is. And I believe we'd mentioned it before, but Eurese ended up moving over to APAC North for content purposes, but then decided to play Pro League and has definitely been an absolutely great addition to that roster. He was able to end up playing with Mia K, who is a well-known APAC North player. So they definitely have a lot of potential, I think, to make a pretty solid run. I don't know if finals is necessarily there where they can get to, but I definitely think they're going to be a team that we will talk about at some point throughout this land. Especially, I think in those early rounds, I think they definitely have enough to move throughout the tournament. It's just when they kind of get to those lobbies where it's probably top 40, top 60, what's that next step then going to be? You know, what is ultimately their ceiling? So I'll be very interested to see. They're currently 7th in APAC North Pro League, which when you had a 19th to start with, I think is pretty damn good. So we'll definitely see where they end up at, but I'm definitely excited to see what Reject does.
One of the teams I'm looking at is FaZe. Typically, you think of the name FaZe and you think of esports success for the most part. I mean, they don't win everything, but you just think that that's an org, that's a big org, and you expect that team to do well. The FaZe that we currently have in Apex Legends, 19th and 20th back-to-back days in Pro League. I don't know what's going on with this team. And when this team had first come together, it was a very successful squad to start off. They I don't know what's happened since. I don't know what's been on. That's Synetic, that is Zane, and that is Tyler FPS. I don't know what's going on, Don. Like, what's going on with FaZe right now?
Yeah, I mean, the first version of FaZe that we saw is not the one we see now, but they definitely had some success. I believe that was Synetic. He was playing with Arctic, and I think Amphi, I believe, was the other one when they first came together. They definitely have had some very poor times trying to kind of get their chemistry together. I don't, especially this version of the roster. They've got a lot of great names, right? With Synetic, with Zane, with Tyler, but ultimately when you come together in team sports, just any sport in general, you know, you really look to put the pieces together that makes the best team, right? It's not necessarily the best individuals make the best team. I think we've seen that in a lot of sports, and we think we've even seen it in Apex, where not necessarily just grabbing the best players is going to produce the best team. There's just some chemistry things that ultimately can override any sort of talent that you have. So it's going to be one of those things that are they able to figure out a system that works for them in terms of where they're at in fights, who positions themselves where, do they want to be a super aggressive team? Do they want to play a zone type style? I just don't think they've quite figured that out yet. And unfortunately, like now you're at a land, like it's kind of hard to kind of put all those pieces together. So it's definitely going to be a tough road, I think, for them. I think that, hopefully for them in those first rounds or two, like you kind of mentioned with Riddle Order, they can kind of gain some confidence by getting a lot of fight wins and getting a lot of KP and kind of getting a little bit more confident about themselves. But it's definitely going to be, I think it could definitely be shaping up to be a rough tournament for FaZe, unfortunately. Just because, I just unfortunately haven't really seen much to put your hat on right now. So we'll definitely have to see what happens.
Yeah, it's been a tough go for FaZe, and it's kind of been this way for a little bit now. And you just got to wonder what's going to happen with that squad going into the Open. And they have the talent, they have the ability, they can surprise some people. But I don't know, man. You just look at the Shopify's form. You look at VP. You look at some of these other teams, even like Go Next or Navi. You look at those squads, and you're like, this is where you need to be. And currently, where they're at is not even close. It's just not even close. Don, I think that's just about it. I'm going to start a brand new segment for each individual group, and I'm just going to say the team with the best name in each group. Group 2,
Fair.
BBL. Team BBL. Shout out
BBL.
Team BBL. You just won a trophy. Whatever that means to you, you can put that on your trophy case. You just won best name in Group 2 of the ALGS Open podcast breakdown section of the show. Group 1, let's go back real quick. If I look at Group 1, I'm going to say best name. I'm going to say Riddle Order. I think that's a solid name. They also win best logo. I'm also going to do that now that I've decided it. I'm doing best logo. Riddle Order wins best name and best logo in Group 1. Group 2, BBL wins best name and the best logo. I mean, you got to give it to Team FaZe. At least they've won that. They've won that.
They have won that, yeah. I think
so congratulations to Team FaZe. Congratulations to Team FaZe. All right, Don, let's move into group number 3. And this one has some big names. I'm wearing the hat right here. We've got Enterforce 36. We've got Team Falcons. We've got Gaming Gladiators. We've got Purple Slushy. We've got a lot of big names here in this group, not to mention Team Nice Guys, which is your squad, which is now Team Omit. So shout out to Don and the boys for getting signed to Team Omit. Don, we looked through this group, and there's one glaring name at the top, and that is Team Falcons. Where are we at with Team Falcons? Where do we stand with Team Falcons? And do we think that this is the super team that we expect going into the Open?
Yeah, I mean, you have to talk about them, right? Because again, just the players that are on the roster, there's just way too much past success there. For everybody that says that, like, oh, like Falcons isn't going to win, like, why are they still being called a super team, like this, that, or whatever? Like, that's just, I think, nonsense. Like, yes, like there's definitely some questions. No, they're not a perfect team. There's definitely some things that they have to figure out, but we want to sit here and, people want to talk about last year, how they were so bad last year, this, that, or whatever. But when they came together, yes, Germany was brutal. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, we never expected a Falcons roster, a HAL and Zero roster to look that bad during finals. But after that, they come to champs. Yes, they had some moments at champs where they weren't necessarily the best, but then they still finished top 5 at champs. Like, we can sit here and say, how bad they're playing or this, that, or whatever. They're still finishing top 5s at lands with shots to win them on match point. So it's just one of those situations where, like, yes, they're not perfect. There definitely have some things they need to figure out. Is Waltz going to play the crypto? Is Hal going to, end up playing a lot more Fuse, a lot more Newcastle? Who exactly is, Zero going to end up playing? Is he going to be the Ash? Is he going to be the Alter? But ultimately, like, you have to consider them one of the favorites. Like, you have to, and again, like, are they the favorite? Maybe not. There might be other teams that we bring up that we think could possibly have that 1 or 2 more % right now where they're, in maybe a little bit better spot, have a few less things they have to figure out. But I mean, come on, like, let's be serious. It's Falcons, man. Like, they're that good. They've earned that right, to say that they're always a tournament favorite every time they go in. And I think we'll definitely see the best version of Falcons at this LAN. Again, another team early on that's going to be putting up a ton of points, going to be absolutely running people down in lobbies. So I don't know what more thoughts you have on that, but I mean, I think they have to be one of the tournament favorites for sure.
Yeah, I guess people just love to hate on the teams that are doing great. And obviously, they haven't won like we thought they were going to win. When the team was initially formed, you just automatically assumed, okay, league's over. But that's why we play the games, ladies and gents. That's why you sit down in the chair and you watch, because you know that anything can happen. If you've watched sports for a long time, you know that a lot of times super teams are created that don't end up doing as well. So that's just part of it. I mean, you still have to play the games, you still got to come together. And also, you got to understand that you watched one of the best IGLs of all time take a back seat to another one of the best IGLs of all time. That takes a little bit of time to adjust to. And when we went to Sapporo, they get third. So it's like, okay, obviously it's not a win, but it's it's not like they're the worst team in the league. In fact, they had some pretty crazy games and they did really well in Sapporo. And that was the last time we got to see them in a tournament setting. So I'm going to take what I saw there and I'm going to translate it to what I think I'm going to see here. Like you said early on, they're going to be running through lobbies. Now I will say this. I feel like with Falcons, typically they start a little bit slower than you would expect them to, which that happens with certain teams. You know, you get to a slow start, takes you a little bit to wake up a little bit. I don't know if that's even going to be able to happen with some of these lobbies, but you could say like, oh, they get out of their first round, but maybe they get sixth or seventh. But you still expect them to move on. I think we might see them start a little bit slower, but then they start to build momentum as time moves on, and then by the time they finally reach the end of everything, that they're going to be fully locked and the Falcons that we know. And so that's what I think. And I think right now there's been a ton of pressure on this team throughout the entire formation of it. But I do feel like with Waltzy, he puts a lot of pressure on himself, and I'm hoping he gives himself a little bit of grace here, because I think that he can do. I think with what he can bring to the team, what he can bring to the table, if he can just remember that he is good too, he deserves to be here too. I think that's going to change his momentum moving forward, and I think it's going to be a lot better and a lot easier for him and Falcons to move as a cohesive unit and squad. Sometimes I think he just puts a little bit too much pressure on himself. Dude, he forgets, like with Moist, he was an absolute dog.
Yeah.
He was a dog.
And
so,
he still is, you know, like
yeah.
That's the thing is like there's so many people that would crumble in the situation he's in right now, right? I still think his performances with Falcons right now, 99.9% of players in Apex would love to have those performances, right? Like, yeah, it's not always pretty. Yeah, he's playing a lot of characters that he's not used to. I think that's where we can probably cut him a little bit of slack. Zero, maybe not cut him slack maybe as much, but that's just how that team plays. You know, it's going to be a lot of high intensity. They're under pressure. They're under the microscope every single time they show up to a LAN, every single time they sign on to their computer. So it's one of those things that Waltzy is one of the best players in this game. He's going to continue to be one of the best players in this game. And again, you have to respect his commitment to this team, his commitment to wanting to get better on these characters that, again, really isn't his, natural strong suit that he wants to gravitate towards, right? Like we've seen him be kill leaders or top fives in kills, whereas now he's on these crypto type characters where he's doing a lot of information gathering, which again, you're doing it for two of the best players in the world. So a lot of people would probably shut up and do that. But like, that's, I think where, again, as fans, we can kind of cut him some slack a little bit of not everything's going to be his fault. It's just going to look like it because he's going to be in the spotlight because everyone's going to be like, oh, what's Walty's reaction to this? What's he going to do with that? So huge credit to him. Again, I really hope this is the tournament that he shuts up a lot of people that maybe are talk negatively about him. Because again, I think he is still one of the best players in this game right now. And anybody that says otherwise, like, needs to kind of get a clue at this point. Honestly, I think he definitely deserves a lot of more respect than I think people give him. So,
yeah. So that's what I think about Falcons moving forward. I think that's going to be the premier team coming out of this group. Obviously, they're going to get a lot of eyeballs as well. A team I do want to talk about, though, and Don, I think that you're going to have some words on this as well. I do want to talk about the Nice Guys, Team Omit. I'm really excited about the Nice Guys because they remind me similarly to the team we had just talked about in a couple groups ago, which was Team Go Next. This team loves to fight. Your boys, they love to fight. So I'm really excited to see that. And this is another team where, once again, like, no disrespect, Don, but there's a lot of great teams in this. There's 160 teams in here. Your team, they haven't been able to scrim a whole lot. Like we've mentioned, they work. They've got kids. They've got all these other extraneous life circumstances that kind of prevent them from being able to be fully locked on everything that is ALGS. But at the same time, they have a ton of skill and they love to fucking fight. They love to get in there and mix it up. Same thing I said about Go Next. You might see this team on your screen a ton. You're going to be like, where are they in the finals lobby? And it's just because they were out there having a blast. And I think the one thing I can put to them, like the one feather I think they have in their cap, is they have nothing to lose. Absolutely nothing to lose. Whereas some of these teams have a ton of pressure. You want to look at a team like Falcons, they're going to have a ton of pressure. Not to say that they can't handle it, but there's a lot of other teams in this 160 team LAN event that do have pressure and maybe aren't able to handle it as well. This team has none of that. What happens if they don't do well? They just go back home to NA Pro League where they're barely sitting outside the top 12 and they're just going to keep rolling teams like they've been doing. And we're talking about they're rolling some good teams in NA Pro League, right? It's not like they're just beating up on the nobodies. They are rolling some good teams here. So I'm looking at Nice Guys and I'm saying you've got no pressure, a team that knows how to fight. They've been in these situations before. A lot of these guys exclusively played in pro leagues in the past and have been to LAN events before. Fuck it, man. They can surprise a lot of teams. Now, if they made a finals lobby, I will say I'd be surprised, but I'd be excited for them, man. I'd be really excited. Now, Don, you're a part of this team. You're a part of this squad. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, definitely for the sake of obviously kind of the consolidated information, I definitely won't go too in depth on some things, but yeah, it's definitely a team that is going to play off of vibes, right? Like they're going to roll up, they're going to see, okay, who's landing next to us, who's doing this, and who can we just go fight, right? Like it's kind of like classic old school Apex where like teams just kind of landed on teams and we're like, hey, we're better than you, so we're just going to go fight you, like. It's going to be a very interesting way to see how they manipulate this tournament and how they kind of go throughout things. Because I'll be honest, when these groups popped, I was like, holy shit, this is loaded to start off your first LAN, to say the least. So it'll definitely be interesting to see, how they decide to approach things, because contrary to a lot of people's belief, I'll give them information, but ultimately they're going to do what they want to do. And that's not a disrespect to me or anybody else that helps them. They just, again, they play off of vibes. They want to have a good time. 3 guys with Arcan, Cody, and Sang that really just get along well and just want to have a great experience with all this. I'm just really excited to see them on a LAN stage. It's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, seeing them under the Omit banner will be cool on its own. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what the boys can do. Again, finals could be something that might just be out of their grasp right now. But again, any team that can show up and fight well, who knows what can happen, and that's the biggest thing I think they have, is that they're going to have the element of surprise against a lot of other teams, because there's a lot more data on these other teams you can kind of go in and study and see what they do, where there really isn't as much with this team, right? Like you just kind of have a couple weeks of pro league, but there's no, there's not scrimming, which I'll be honest, even if they didn't have life circumstances, they may not still scrim, because they don't necessarily see the value in it as some other teams do. Like I said, they just really show up and want to have a good time with it. So it'll be very interesting to see. The boys are definitely going to be locked. There's no questions about that. And I'm definitely excited to see what they can do. I will say, jump into another team I'm definitely really interested in, and that also can fight, is Lonely Let Gone from Apex South. They are basically the same version of Nice Guys, except for they just absolutely just want to go. I mean, they, again, just want to go fight anybody and everybody. I was watching them during Apex South Pro League. And for those who don't know, this is Roy's team, who used to play on the Dreamfire rosters in the past. Yep. Shout out. Yeah, there you go. Wyatt said that's his calling card right there for those who don't know. But yeah, they have a player named Shoji, which I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And I apologize if I'm not. But they are running ballistic comps. They are running baggy comps, and they are just running people down. Like they're first in kills in the region. They're second in damage. They're first in plus minus. Shoji in the world is second overall with 50 kills. He's also first in the region in damage. Roy's 8th in the region in damage. They just will go fight you, and they're good at it. So it's going to be really interesting to see, because again, these early lobbies are going to be a lot about like who wants to fight who and kind of steamroll lobbies. This might be one of the lobbies where it might be a little tougher to do that because there's a lot of big fish in a very small pond in this lobby. You got E36 that's going to want to fight people. You got Lonely Let Gone. You've got Falcons, Nice Guys. There's a lot of teams, and I'm not even mentioning Kashera's team in 10K or Gaming Gladiators that are also in this lobby. So it's going to be a very interesting dynamic to see how this turns out with this lobby. Because again, like there's room for all these teams to make it in the top 10, but if they all end up fighting each other early, we might see a big name drop down to the losers bracket early. So it'll be very interesting to see what the dynamic is, and I'm really interested to see how Lonely Let Gone does at this LAN. But is there anybody else you've got your eye on, Wyatt, out of this group?
E36, baby. E36. I had 3-6 Mafia. I had the fingers up while I was in Sapporo supporting the team. And if you ask and wonder how I became so enamored with team E36, it definitely wasn't because they were selling camo hats at Sapporo. That is not the reason. It's definitely not. I'm not going to tell you the real reason, but it's definitely not because they sold me this sick camo hat at Sapporo. I actually have a second one too. I have a second one. There's a snow camo hat as well. I have both.
That goes hard.
That one goes hard. And I thought about wearing it for this pod. The only thing that sucks is, and I don't know, like you're a hat guy too, so you know this. You ever have a hat where like you can only wear it backward because when it's forward, it kind of looks weird on your head? So like this one looks fine on my head because the top part, it kind of comes down. But the snow camo one, it comes out a little bit and I look a little bit odd. So I can only wear that one backwards. And I wanted to rock the logo today. But yeah, definitely not because they sold me a camo hat. Jayhawk will try to tell you that that's what it is. It's not. I'm not going to tell you the real reason though. I'm going to keep that to myself. But it definitely isn't the camo hat. No, but seriously though, E36, they had a great showing at Sapporo. They did really well. In fact, I think they had one of the craziest games at the tournament. They put up like 21 kills in winners bracket, went absolutely nutso, went insane. So this team has the ability. They have the talent. Once again, Don, it's unfortunate that the nice guys are in this lobby with some of these heavy hitters here.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. But yeah, so they have Synap. I call him I Love You. But it's Illy, I think. And then you have Justna. So they did not have Justna at Sapporo.
Correct.
But this is the new addition to their team, and that's kind of the question here is what's it going to look like with Justna on the squad now? Obviously,
Justna, real quick, comes from Crazy Raccoon. For those who don't know, so he just played with Obley in St. June recently. A ton of LAN experience. So if they're going to find somebody, that's definitely somebody that you want to add because they bring a lot of experience at a high level. So, but continue with what you were saying.
No, I was just going to say in Pro League, they're doing well. I think they're currently sitting at 5th right now, tied for 5th at 27 points. There's some big hitters in APAC North Pro League right now. If you're just looking at these points, and one of those we got to get to in a little bit here when we move into that group. But yeah, so I'm just super excited to see what E36 can do. I guess the biggest question is the Justna edition and what that is going to do moving into the Pro League. Not in the Pro League, into the Open, because we don't really know and we haven't really seen them at a tournament with this particular player. Can they produce the same results? It looks like from Pro League they can, but you never really know. You never really know. Some guys aren't tournament guys. Some guys are not, LAN guys, and we'll just have to see where it goes. But I'm very excited to see what E36 can put up. I'm hoping that at least in these lobbies, they get a ton of kills like they did in Sapporo, just as long as they're not killing the nice guys. That's my one team I'm looking at. Any other teams, Don, from this region before we move into the next group?
No, I think we're good. I think we can definitely move on over. I think that definitely covers it. Just, again, you definitely want to mention Kashera's team in 10K with 10K and Gaming Gladiators in this group as well. Those are really, again, the other big heavy hitters. So it'll definitely be a very interesting dynamic as we move forward.
Yeah, before we move into the next one here, I got to give the best logo and I got to give the best name. And once again, I think we're going to have a double winner here. Purple Slushy. Sick logo, sick name. Purple Slushy, congratulations. You just won your group.
Shout out.
Good job. Great job. Great win. Okay, let's move into the next group here. And I believe that this is group number 4. We have some big ones here. We've got 100 Thieves inside there. We've got Green Stego, which has been making names. We've got Ninjas in Pajamas. We have some big names inside of this group, but the biggest one has to be 100 Thieves. And that is because this roster is absolutely insane. Now, we have had some ups and downs already with 100 Thieves. But Dawn, from your perspective, what does 100 Thieves need to do here to kind of solidify themselves after not the best showing in the most recent Pro League?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that they definitely want to figure out is just, again, really how they want to ultimately play. I think that, yes, they're going to be great in fights, right? You know, they've got 3 of the better players. Their team fighting is going to be really good. But I think when they really get to those finals lobbies, and those lobbies are going to be a little bit more difficult, it's going to be a lot harder to try like the big zone wrap plays that like we've seen like they tried to do in this most recent Pro League day where they actually got caught off on edge. It's gonna be one of those things that are they able to negotiate the map the way that phony led teams can? Because I think that when you have the tools to the roster, right, that you are so good at fighting, you can kind of have that tendency to maybe lean on that too much. Whereas if you get back to your basics of finding, center zone, holding good spots in zone, shepherding teams away from you, that's ultimately where phony led teams have had all this success, right? Even when they had Zainu, even and Koiful on that roster in that final game, they're playing Watson and playing middle zone with 2 of the best fighting players in the world. So it'll be very interesting to see if they're able to find a dynamic to where they kind of get back to that. Because again, I think at times they might have played a little bit too much on edge. But I think overall, again, it's one of those teams that you see the 3 players that are there, and it's like, yeah, I should probably definitely mention them because, again, if as long as they're playing to their capability, they're definitely going to be one of those teams that's hitting match point, and it'll just ultimately come down to making those final right decisions to win a match point scenario. So I'm definitely excited to see them again with Evan, Jen Burton, Phony, 3 of the best players right now in Apex. Can the individual performances create a sum bigger than the individual parts?
Yeah, and I think what we're going to see from a lot of these teams is the individual performances early on kind of carry you into those later rounds because once again, 160 teams, a lot of them are not going to be up to par with some of these. So we're going to see some individual performances pop off. The one thing I am kind of questioning and worried about with certain individuals and just certain individual performances in general is can you flip the switch from being like, okay, I was able to do this early on. Now it's really time to lock in and make sure we're all on the same page. Because I think that there's going to be a handful of teams that you expect to never go to losers that do because they forget to flip that switch. I just feel like that's going to be a scenario that we run into here.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see if there's some teams that again that you don't necessarily expect and end up in the loser side early on because again it's a format that we're not used to. It's not something that we've seen on a LAN environment. There's a lot of different variables that are going to be going on at this LAN, with the main stage and 3 side stages. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it all breaks down for sure.
Yeah, one team I'm looking at here is Ninjas in Pajamas. And for the same reason that I brought up FaZe earlier, you look at the name of the org, you look at the org in general, and you say, I feel like this should be a team that's in tippity top form. Unfortunately, that is not where they're currently at. Dawn, looking at NIP and what's been going on, what's the problem here? Like what's struggling? What's holding NIP back from being where they should be?
I will say, like, I think up until this Pro League, I think a lot of it has been just basically decision making. I think that they've picked a lot of bad spots to play on the map. I think that their rotates haven't been very good. Nashki led teams typically have rotated very well and gotten to spots in zone. And I think they've definitely struggled with that here in more recent times. Because again, I think they kind of led themselves to try to fight a little bit more, especially when you had like the Zanes of the world. Obviously when you have a player like Zane, you definitely aren't afraid to take too many fights. But I think that kind of locking it in a little bit more. I know Nashki definitely loves to have a good time, but I do think it is at some point, that you really need to lock in and kind of find that identity to help you grow as a team. With Raven as a coach, I'm very interested to see what the dynamic is at the land to see if there are some things that maybe they can figure out on the land stage. I did want to make a note that I know Amphi unfortunately will not be at the land due to some personal side circumstances that are coming up, and definitely wishing him well wishes with everything going on with him and everything. And I know Scurry then is coming in to replace them or replace him, and it'll be very interesting to see what that dynamic ends up being, because Scurry has definitely got a lot of recent experience with land. He obviously had the experiences with the old 100 Thieves rosters at land as well. So it's definitely a good player to have to bring in on short notice. But ultimately, again, is can they get back to that point where they're early rotating well, finding good spots in zone, and then their biggest question then from there is, do they have enough fighting potential then to hold that? That's ultimately going to be a big question too. So, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see what happens with them.
How much of a difference do you think Raven makes in this situation where you have a player in Nasky who's had top tens in the past, but just seemingly has kind of lost form here? You bring in a guy like Raven, who's obviously been a champion. Do you think that there's going to be enough impact to potentially get them to, let's say, a finals lobby?
Yeah, I think the finals lobby will definitely be tough for this group. I think a lot of it will have to do with just having to play with a sub, because again, you just don't have like that pro league experience as much. Playing with them, I know they had Serdell even sub in for their second match day, so they really haven't had the time to play with Scurry as much. I think they've had some scrim potential, but that's about all I've seen. Really, as a coach, if I were coaching that team, I think the biggest thing you try to do is when players are struggling, right, they try to overthink everything, right? Like, is it this thing I'm doing? Is it the comp? Is it, this, that, or whatever? And I think the biggest thing a coach can do in that situation is trying to reassure them that it's not as big a problem as you think it is. The coach comes in, they try to take care of all the little things so the player has less things that they have to think about. Because IGLs in this game already have so much to think about, right? Like, you got to think about rotates, you got to think about what fights you want to take, and think about ring pulls, where your other two players are positioned right now. Like, there's just so much going on that as a coach, if you can get them with their preparation going into a match, just locked in on very simple cues of like, okay, you see this, we're doing this. If you see this, we're doing that. And obviously they'll have to flex to some things at points, because obviously that's what Apex is. But just trying to mitigate that RNG gap that happens with Apex, I think is going to be Raven's ultimate goal here with Nashki and this team. And can he ultimately make that big of an impact? Obviously the coach isn't playing, so it is tough to say what that impact could look like. But obviously we've seen Raven, the impact he made with Hal and TSM, when Nasky and his past rosters were doing well. I believe that's actually where Raven started, was with Nasky. So it'll be very interesting to see if they can pull some things from the past potentially to ultimately create a better version of what we've seen from NIP and Nasky teams of the past.
Yeah, I hope for the sake. Nasky's one of those characters that you want to see later in a LAN. It's not like you don't want to see him gone early, because once again, he does have fun and he does bring the vibe. I think sometimes, though, like you mentioned earlier, sometimes there can be too much of that. And the situation I remember all the time is back in LA when they're winning contests against E8, but then they're celebrating while a third party's running in. It's like, okay, cool, but we got to stay a little bit locked here. You're in a finals. Like, let's try to get in there. Like that's one of those situations I look at. And I think if having that firm voice behind him, trying to keep them locked, I think that can be huge. So I'm looking over at NIP and I'm kind of wondering and hoping that they can make it a little bit further down than a lot of people are expecting them to. So that's NIP for you, ladies and gents. Let's move into another team that I'm looking at here, and that's Green Stego. They are currently leading APAC South Pro League through the first rotation. They've had a first place and a third place day in back-to-back games. They're currently second in kills and third in damage plus minus in the region. And then second in Asia is second in kills and damage, with Dexter fifth in damage. Those are some statistics for you. Shout out Dawn for those. Dawn, when you look at Green Stego here, I don't know if people expected this to be where APAC South is currently sitting, but what's been like allowing this team to continue to dominate the way that they have so far through the first early parts of Pro League? And do you think it translates to the Open?
Yeah, so I think a big thing that this roster has that some others may not is just that continuity, right? That's been a roster that's played together for a while now, has a ton of LAN experience from the past. So, and for those who don't know, Green Stego is the Makers used to be the org that they played under, if that provides some context in the past. But yeah, I just think some things that I've seen is that they actually aren't playing the Newcastle or Cat, at least in Pro League, which I think is a testament to them, where I think a lot of teams feel like they almost have to force those characters into the comp. And honestly, if you're confident enough in character picks that you play the style you want to play and you know you can be successful with it, I think there's definitely weight to that. And I think there's definitely some teams that are maybe struggling right now that might need to look in the mirror and be like, hey, is there character comps that we can pick that just fit us more, like, and can help us project our play style onto the tournament that we want to play, instead of maybe molding to maybe what like NA is doing or like what Falcons is doing. Some people have mentioned that in the past. That's like their strategy is just looking at what the best teams are doing. You definitely want to incorporate some of that. But, for them, especially, like, they've started days with Ash Fuse Crypto. Like, they started both days with that, actually. So, like, if that's a play style that works for you and you know you can run with it, why change it, right? Like, why force a Newcastle in there? Why force a Cat in there? If you know you can play those comps and play it to a high level, you have to absolutely send that. Their biggest question is going to be is what is their ultimate potential on LAN? Because we've seen them do really well in Pro League, but they haven't quite been able to bring it to a LAN setting. I know 8 from Asia and Ziki, they've been 10th is the best they've ever placed at a LAN, and Dexter, they play his best is 13th. But they've had a lot of like losers round 2, losers round 1 exits at other LANs. So I hope they're able to find some sort of consistency and make those finals lobbies and have an impact, because it's been a team I've been keeping my eye on, especially all of last year. So I'm really interested to see if maybe this sort of different format might fit them better, and they ultimately are able to make that push for finals and make a bigger impact. Yeah. So is there anybody else you had in mind for this group?
I was getting ready to do my winners of the name and logo competition, unless you had anybody else.
I do want to mention, I think we would be bad friends if we didn't mention it, but shout out to Fusion. I think when you looked at Fusion on paper, a lot of people would just see them hard zone team, probably not going to get a lot of kills. This past Pro League day, they were fighting very well with some teams that you would not expect them to fight well with. Yes, there's that unfortunate clip of what happened with Koifel, but that's just Koifel being Koifel, like you kind of just tip your hat and move on with that. But other than that, they did very well. And I'll be very interested to see what they do at this LAN, to see if they continue to increase their performances. Because I think one thing you always want to look for, right, is teams that are improving heading into this LAN. I definitely think they fall underneath that category. That is a team of Trev Stacks, Dan, and January, which I've been really impressed with January's progression as a fragger and kind of frontlining character, because there's a ton of pressure on them, right, to find picks, to not go down, to really create a lot of openings for their team to move into. And I think as time has gone on, he's definitely gotten better and better as he's played more and more in Pro League. So definitely we'll see what those boys do. Big shout out to Burke, our boy, coaching that team, and definitely hope Fusion maybe gets, maybe finishes 1 or 2 spots behind Nice Guys, but we're definitely big shout out to the boys and hope they play well. So, but
shout out to Burke.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Fusion boys.
Who we got for the logo?
Hold on. I want to give one last shout out to Team Temper. Call Spades. If you guys don't remember, this was an episode we did a long time ago. Team Temper we got the whole team on, and I still follow Call Spades right now. He's a Broncos fan, and it's definitely not shouting him out because he's a Broncos fan. Definitely not. That's not it. But shout out to Call Spades. I'm happy he's getting to go to a LAN, because I was following Team Temper. I famously said I felt like they could potentially make Pro League, and they did not. They did not even get close, really. But they tried, and they did the best they could. Their first split of Pro League, I think they were almost last, and then their second split, they did way better. So shout out to Team Temper. For the name, I'm picking Remarkable Team. How do you beat that? Somebody walks in, they say their team name is Remarkable Team. I'm shitting my pants. Okay. Now the logo, I'm going to let you pick on this. Penguin Power or Green Stego? This is up to you. You pick this one.
That is tough. I might have to go with the Pengu Power though. I think that for whatever reason that logo just goes hard.
It
So
goes so hard.
we'll go with that one to say the least.
Because if you're not looking right now, it's literally just a penguin holding a hammer sitting on an anvil.
Yeah,
That's sick.
I don't got much words besides like that just goes crazy. Like it's shout out to those guys for that
I
logo, whoever
wanted
made
to
that.
give it I wanted to give it to our boy Burke, but I'm just confused on what this logo is supposed to be.
I think it's just like an F and an S,
I first
but
thought
like I don't
intestines.
know. It kind
My
of does.
first
It does give intestines vibes,
It
some a
gives
little bit.
intestines. It's giving intestines, boys. It's giving intestines.
uh,
Okay, so those are the winners. We've got Pengu. I said Penguin Power. I didn't even read that shit. Pengu Power as the logo, and then Remarkable Team wins the team name. Congratulations. You guys just won your
Shout
group.
out.
Great job. Great job. Great win. Let's move into the next group here. Boys and girls, we've got ourselves some big ones in this one. We've got Navi. We've got Furia. We've got NRG. We've got Crazy Raccoons. Gosh damn, that's a lot. That is a ton of big name teams in this one, and there's plenty more that we didn't even mention on this. Let's kick it off here. Don, I want you to kick it off with your team, the one that stands out to you the most coming out of this group.
Yeah, I think I'd be remiss to not mention the boys over at VK Gaming. That's somebody that I'm always looking at for the past couple of lands. They've got two top tens at the last two lands dating back to Germany and champs, and they're a team that just always consistently seems to be placing themselves in really good spots, whether that's in a tournament in itself or individual games. They just always seem to be there, right? And ultimately, when you're a team that does that and can put themselves in spots to win, who knows what can happen, when eventually the opportunity comes your way. They were in, for those who maybe didn't actually watch the sequence go down, in champs before Go Next ends up getting like that spot of the side of the zone. VK Gaming was like that third or fourth team, that third party there. So they were very, very, and they were, I believe, on match point or about to go on to match point at that point. So they were one or two fights away from being in the game winning position at that last game at Sapporo. So I think their biggest question is going to be is that what comps do they do after the crypto gets banned? Because I do think crypto could be an early ban with a lot of teams that come in and play crypto from APAC North, APAC South, and also NA picking up a lot of crypto as well. So what ultimately is their compositions that don't include crypto? Are they able to replace it with just like a Newcastle that a lot of teams have replaced them with? Or do they go a different direction? I think that if they're able to figure that out, VK Gaming is definitely going to go a long way. I definitely would expect them to make another finals, which definitely means they probably won't make finals since I said that so confidently. But hopefully that's not the case, and they do end up making finals and continue to show out the way that they have been in Pro League so far.
Yeah, I'm going to kick it off with our current champion. I'm kicking it off with Navi. Obviously, they were Go Next before. They are now Navi. And the biggest question coming out of Sapporo was, are we reaching a point in ALGS where random teams are winning lands? And a lot of people said that this land win wasn't deserved or wasn't impressive in any way. And it was getting called out by a lot of people. And I guess the one thing you could do as Team Navi at that moment was say, hey, it was 100% deserved and we're going to show it. We're going to prove it to you. And that's exactly what they have done. They are dominating EMEA Pro League. And when I say dominating, I mean, like there was, what was did they have like 100 points and the next closest had like 50?
Yeah.
Absolute domination.
So for perspective, before you continue, they got bonus points for not only winning a certain amount of games in one set, but also doubling the amount of points that you had to the next team. It's like, I think if you have a 50-point gap to the next team, that is also a bonus point for Pro League. So they got 2 bonus points in one day, which is, I don't think there's been many bonus points ever handed out in the history of Pro League. So I don't know if even dominance talks about how well they've been playing so far.
Yeah, they're just in a completely different stratosphere. And when you're talking about a team that you're looking at going into champs, or sorry, not champs, like the finals lobby of this event, they've got to be in your top 5. even if something crazy happens and they don't happen to get there, you got to have them there because their form right now is off the charts. It's insane. Yuzako, Hyarka, Zidane, they have been great. Obviously, we had those two. We had Yuzako and Hyarka on the show just a few weeks ago. If you guys want to check out those interviews, they talk about their win in Sapporo and where they currently sit and their reaction to people saying they didn't deserve to win. You can definitely tell it when they took it to heart, and they've been absolutely shredding. Currently sitting first in Pro League with the most kills, most damage dealt, and the best plus minus in the EMEA region. Yuzako is first in kills and damage, and Zidane is eighth in kills and third in top 10, and all three at top 10 in damage. Sorry. So they are racking it up. They are in a different they're when I look at EMEA, the two teams that stand out to me are the GoNext team and Navi, and for entirely different reasons. One, GoNext is just fun to watch. I just want to be locked into all the fights that they're taking. And then on the opposite side, Navi is just absolute domination. They're currently shredding their region, shredding it. Like you mentioned, two different versions of bonus points handed out. Insane. So this is a team you're going to want to watch out for. And I think the one thing too with Navi, and when they did win under the Go Next banner, was a lot of people were upset, including me and Don, to be honest with you, because we're like, what the hell is this? You had the storyline of Sweet sitting right there, and you wanted it so bad. You're like, oh my God, it's right here. Like, we could have the final chapter. We could close the book on this. But now you look forward, and they've created their own little superstardom that they're starting to branch out from, and their name is starting to get further and further out there. And that's what you want as an esport. You want to have more than just those handful of guys that everybody talks about. You want to see that umbrella grow, and it continues to grow for them. And I'm super excited for Navi, and those guys are awesome to hang out with. And also, not to mention, if they win another one, I think Hyarka might bust out some crazier celebrations. I mean, his sellies were absolutely insane. He almost passed out at one point. So super excited to see what Navi brings to the table. Do you have anything to add on Navi, Don?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it's, what ended up starting with people saying, "Oh, this isn't much of a great story for Apex," is really starting to form into one, right? Like, you're starting to see a team that has won a championship now playing like they're champions and absolutely dominating every team that gets put in front of them, absolutely dominating both the match days they played in, and now can they back it up in another land, right? Now that they're on the other side of the coin where they kind of come in as one of the favorites, how do they react to that? And I think so far, when a lot of people obviously I think would consider them favorites going into their own pro league, how well they've dominated in that, I don't really see them not continuing that to land in some sort of level. Again, whether they can repeat as as champions, that's always going to be a question that sometimes doesn't always get answered by the team. It gets answered by some RNG or other things they can't control. But I definitely think they'll be in the conversation. I definitely think they've earned that right based on how they've played, not only at champs in that finals lobby, but also here in Pro League. I'm definitely very excited to see what's going on with that. But I know we can move forward. Who's you got a surprise team or someone that maybe people aren't talking about, or in this group?
I don't even know if it's a surprise team. If you've listened to the show long enough, the teams I kind of keep a close tab on. But I do think it's a team that I'm worried about, and I think it's Furia. Furia had their best performance at Sapporo. And then you're thinking going into it, I mean, this team has had continuity for a very long time. They've been together for a while, and they got better every single tournament. And then we had the drama that surfaced right after Sapporo. And it felt like it was just a move to be made just to make a move. And I don't know what is going to happen with this team after the Open. Obviously, all the tweets were deleted and things were, talked about and smoothed over, supposedly. We don't really know. But I don't know what's going to happen with Furia. They're currently sitting 12th in Pro League, so technically, if it ended right now, they would be going to Split 2. But I do think that they haven't shown what I felt like was their best showing all of last year. I felt like they did much better in year 4. And I don't know if everything's been completely fixed with this roster and with this squad. Now, when I say roster move that they made kind of out of a panic, I'm not talking about knocked. I'm talking about the fact that they almost dropped Keon, which makes no sense to me. And I love Keon a lot. Like I try to talk to him every time I go to a LAN and just to say what's up. And we've had him on the show a few times. That just seems insane. I don't know where that came from. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know with Furia right now. I don't know where they sit. I want to say that because of the teams and the amount of teams that there are, that they should be all right. But if you look at their group, Don, they're not playing as easy of a group as some of these other teams, man. Like they have a lot of big names. You mentioned VK. The only reason I didn't mention them was they didn't put the logo in here. So I mean, you've got Crazy Raccoons, you've got VK Gaming, you've got NRG, you've got Navi, and then you have them. It's like, man, that's a lot of teams. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Furia right now. And obviously, I'm going to be rooting for the boy Keon when we're down there, but who knows? I'm a little bit worried about Furia going into the Open.
Yeah, I think rightfully so. I think it's a team that, again, like we've always kind of had on our radar as when will they, what is their breakout performance coming? When are we going to consistently see this team perform at an extremely high level? We saw last year, right? I think they really built into the year, and we saw a very good versions of themselves at champs, when it came all said and done. But then they make the roster, there's roster moves. There's a lot of things that go on and kind of reshapes how we're thinking about this roster right now. And I think that when you look at the individual pieces, right, with Madness, with Noct, and with Keon, it's like, oh, like this roster should be successful, right? But there's always dynamics within teams that we just don't all see what's going on, right? Or when we see it on game day, you just see, oh, like they're arguing a lot, but like it doesn't necessarily mean it just is the game. Like there could be more outside of the game that's going on. So ultimately, what is that dynamic? The thing I've been really interested in is, are they going to have Noct play characters like he has in the past, like a Cat, where he's been really good at it? And they're going to have Keon be more of like a fragger or refragging with Madness? Or is it going to be the other way around, where here recently we've seen Noct on a lot more of aggressive characters and playing a little bit more frontlining than I think I've seen from Noct in the past? It's going to be a really interesting dynamic to see if that's how they truly go. Because again, I just don't think we have a ton of data of Noct being like the frontliner. So it'll be really interesting to see, because especially like it was the second day he was on Alter, Ash, Bang, whereas the first day he was strictly on Newcastle. So it's going to be really interesting to see what direction they decide to go with that dynamic, and ultimately what is their ceiling with this team. So I'll be, definitely a good team to watch. Definitely a lot of things going on, and we will see what happens.
Another team I'm looking at, Dawn, is NRG. Now, they just had a pretty good day of Pro League, but they've also followed that up. Like before that, they didn't have their best day. And I think what makes this team so interesting is the roster kind of came out of nowhere, and nobody really expected that to be a formation of a team in the first place. They come together. They have some good days. They have some bad days. Their problems seem to be just getting into the right spots at certain times, and comms can get pretty cloudy and not really decisive or clear. Where do you see NRG right now? Because I could see a world where NRG drops relatively early and then has like a loser's run. That's kind of where I'm picturing them right now. And it sounds crazy with the amount of talent on that team. But I do think they have some problems that need to get worked out. And I think that there might be a set a little early where we could see them drop and then have a solid run. Where do you stand with NRG right now?
I think the biggest thing with NRG, like you said, it's just ultimately to come down to what is the comm structure of this team. Because a lot of teams will see, they have the IGL at the top. You have two players that feed them information and they act on what the IGL is doing, right? Where I think the dynamic right now with NRG is that we just don't have quite that find out structure that a lot of these other teams have. And like you said, I think it leads a lot to these flooded comms that don't really give you a sense of like, oh, like this is who like is definitely always in charge. Like we've got Yanni, who used to be an IGL in his own right. You've got Timmy that has wanted to always be an IGL and it's IGL'd a couple teams now. And here recently, it's just like we haven't really seen like the consistency that you want to see in some of these top teams. And it just ultimately is to come down to is can they straighten out their structure of comms to, yes, everyone's going to be feeding information because that's what every team does, but whose authority are they going to act on eventually? Like, is it going to be Timmy? Is it going to be a Guild if they have Guild on the frontline characters? Is it going to be Yanya with his past experience as an IGL? I think ultimately it does end up coming to Timmy, and I think he will be the one that ends up making a lot of the decisions. But he's going to be the one that when he gets into these high intense moments where there's a lot of micro calls that have to be made to put your team in the right spot, how does his communication get to Yanya and get to Guild? Is it clear, concise, and they're able to make a move? Or is it kind of the panicky toned vibe that we've gotten from comms in the past on teams that Timmy has led, which leads them to misplaying a spot where they should have won the game or dying early because they had a bad rotate or a bad fight. So I definitely hope to see the best version of this team. I think the best version of this team can shock a lot of people, but I think like you said, it could be somebody that the second round of the tournament they already dropped to the losers bracket and they got to fight their way out, which could be a good thing for a roster like that because a lot of those losers rounds could be a lot of just hammering a lot of teams that aren't as good as you, but you're also playing a very fine line dropping down that early when you have to end up playing 16, 24 or so more games and potentially some other teams going into finals if you make it that far. So we'll definitely see.
Yeah, the only other team that I'm looking at on this roster, and it's just because we know them, Don, is the squad CTE from NA. Did you have another one that you wanted to kind of highlight or talk about for some people who may not know this team?
Really quickly, one that I know people will know is Crazy Raccoon. I think would be doing them a disservice if we didn't mention them. Again, we're coming up on literally exactly a year from now where they shocked the world and won a tournament. Karampu has rejoined St. June and Obley on this roster. So I'm very interested to see. They are very much struggling right now in Pro League. I believe they're in the bottom, like 23rd, 24th right now overall. So it's definitely something that are they able to find that old dynamic back that they used to play with and kind of make another run that we've seen them make before, or are we going to see the same version we've seen in Pro League where they've definitely struggled and maybe end up being a team that falls early. So they're definitely somebody that's a storyline I want to keep an eye on. And then another quick team just to hit on them is Activist. This is the team that used to be called New Jay, who made their LAN debuts at Germany. Last year, their IGL has moved on to Fnatic, which we'll get into Fnatic. But they currently sit fourth in their Pro League right now, which for losing your IGL is pretty damn impressive, to say the least. Being able to bounce back, especially in APAC North, where there is a lot of, like you said, heavy-hitting fighting teams that exist to the top. So I'll be really interested to see if they are able to learn from their prior maybe their prior mistakes they made at Germany and are able to make a little bit more of a run. For those who don't know, it's Inaga, Ian, and Corone, which Corone's going to be making his LAN debut, where, like I said, the other two appeared at Germany for the first time. So I'll be really interested to see what they do. They're going to be a hard zone team, but they've also done a really good job of dishing out some damage. Ian is 8th in damage, so we'll see what happens. And we'll see what they can do. But I'm definitely excited to see if they can maybe improve from the last time they were at LAN. So, and you said you want to talk about CTE?
No. That was just a team I was keeping an eye on. Just a team I wanted to watch, just because NA. I just know NA. So,
absolutely.
If I had to pick a logo here, this is going to be controversial. Okay, I'm picking Furia because that's our lion. And for people who don't know, I'm a huge mountain lion advocate. This poster right here, it's literally just a mountain lion, and I just put it up in the studio. It's just a mountain lion. That's it. So big mountain lion guy. I'm going to go Furia's logo. I think a lot of people would expect Crazy Raccoon to win that logo battle, but for me, it's Furia all day, every day. So I got Furia as my logo winner, and then the name winner. And I'm kind of pissed that this made it because my name got banned on Apex. But I guess this is allowed in ALGS Twerkaholics. Like, okay, my name was Ballistics Ball Bag. That could mean anything. That could be like his golf bag. That could
I heard
be,
he's a big golfer. He's an old guy. You know, I
he
mean,
could be
you
a
think he's on
golfer,
the? He
man.
could be on the range all the time, man.
And I got banned for 3 days for ballistics ball bag, but in ALGS we got twerkaholics. That's twerking is the act of shaking your butt meat fast and vigorously, and that's not banned.
That's
But
not
ballistics
banned.
ball bag is.
Yeah.
I don't love. I don't love it. I don't love it. But yeah, twerkaholics is going to win the name, and Furia is going to win the logo. Runner up, Crazy Raccoon, obviously. It's just unfortunate they're in the same group. So congrats, Furia, on winning.
Shout out.
Congrats.
Yep.
Yeah, congrats. Shout out to them. All right, Don, we've got just a few groups left to go. Let's move into one of the final three, I believe. I think
Yep,
we're
group
on
6. Yep.
Yeah, we're on group 6 right now. We are moving and grooving. Let's go into group 6 here, Don. There's lots of names in this one. One that stands out to me. Let's kick it off with Liquid Alienware, because I think that this team is going to dominate. I think this team is going to dominate this group.
Yeah, Liquid will definitely be interesting to see because I think their stock was definitely a little bit higher before they went into champs, where I think they kind of lost some of their momentum and definitely didn't play to the version I think that we expected them to. I know they made finals, but they really didn't have much of an impact in that finals. And I know leading up to it, they weren't exactly that team that we saw, heading into it. I mean, they were the BLGS winners, and definitely had played very well in Pro League heading into everything. So I'll definitely be interested to see the version we get. They are 6th in Pro League right now, which obviously is very solid. Again, I think with the roster they have with Nazul, Jaguares, and Karev, I think you definitely expect them to be performing well. But I'll be very interested to see because obviously we've seen Karev kind of made his name being on the Newcastle, right? And that's definitely where that roster definitely started to shine, is when he came in and played very well. But I'll be very interested to see what other characters he ends up on and what impact he does have. Again, I think he'll definitely will still have an impact, but it's just how much will he? Because their first match day, he was on Newcastle exclusively. And then on the second match day, when Newcastle got banned, saw picks like Fuse and Ballistic. So I'll be very interested to see if he can kind of take his game that he had on Newcastle and take it to these other characters and still make the same impact that he did. Because I do expect, again, Newcastle probably is going to be an early ban at a lot of these rounds of the tournament. So going to be very interested to see what their dynamic looks like when Karev is not on the Newcastle. So what else you got in Liquid from your side?
I think you hit Liquid perfectly. I was going to move into the next team here that I'm watching, and that's Twisted Minds, bro. I'm really excited to watch Twisted Minds. Obviously, formerly Stallions, and their first day of Pro League, it was, I think, when going into NA Pro League, you're looking at this team, and everybody was very excited to see how they come out and how they perform, and they just did not have the best day. I think they had a crazy first game where Alberlelli kind of like soloed himself to getting them like 7 points, which doesn't sound like a lot, but from the situation that they were stuck in, it was really cool to watch. Yeah. Then they followed it up a pretty bad day with a very solid day, and I think they got 3rd place. And going through and watching their day, I tried to watch every game. There was a lot of games that kind of, for whatever reason, lagged out. And when I was watching the VOD, you couldn't see exactly what had taken place, especially on their one win. The one game I wanted to watch, wasn't able to see a whole lot of it. But what I did get to learn a lot about was their comms and how they were figuring things out as a team together. And it reminds me a lot of Virtus Pro. It reminds me a lot of Zach Mazur's squad, because they really bounce ideas off of one another constantly. Like, I would say, from my perspective, there isn't like a clear cut IGL. There's just a lot of talking going back and forth, and not in a cloudy way, if that makes sense. It's just a lot of, this is what we need to do. Why can't we do this? Why can we do this? And it gets them into some pretty solid spots. And I think with Alberlelli's knowledge and vision and ability to play so many different legends, this legend ban system is perfect for him. And having this come in where it has, I think Alb is going to start making that name once again. For people who are newer to the esport and potentially missed some of the early days, I know I did. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of Alb, and I think I'm very excited to watch Twisted Minds going into this.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Alb is going to be a lot of fun to watch, I think, in this format. I mean, just literally looking at his character picks from the first day. Started on Ash, went to Wraith, Alter, Ballistic, finished on Newcastle. And then day 2 starts on Newcastle and then goes to Ash, Alter, Wraith. So just his flexibility he has to play a lot of different characters, going from frontline, backline. It's going to be very interesting to see. And like you mentioned, I think what ultimately is going to be where they can get to is what their dynamic ends up being between Crook and Alb. I think Alb definitely tends to be a little bit more aggressive, tries to get into a little bit more fights, where Crook definitely is a lot more focused on the macro and positioning themselves and like trying to get to good spots. So can they kind of balance each other out and where they're picking good fights for the intention of getting good spots? Typically when they're at their best, that is what they're doing. And then ultimately what the form is of Enemy as well coming in. Because again, I think you mentioned they kind of have that parallel at times to what VP can their dynamics like. Enemy can, potentially be kind of what Slayer maybe was before now, because I think that Slayer's kind of polished himself up a little bit more. We definitely see a very, very good player in Slayer. And I think Enemy is definitely still building himself to that, because again, I think there's definitely still some mistakes that happen with Enemy where he catches himself in the wrong spot or he's too far extended out. And I think with a lot of the characters that he's going to be playing, because again, just looking at his characters, a lot of the Cats, the Watsons, the Fuses, you're not going to have that extra movement, right, to like save yourself. So he's going to have to really position himself well to allow Alb and Crook to do what they do with their macro and micro decision making. So we'll see what happens with this roster. Again, it's definitely, there's a lot of good things that can definitely come from them, especially when you have somebody like Alb at the helm. But ultimately, again, is can their dynamic as a team formulate to success at a high level?
I do want people to understand too that Enemy seems to be in a much better headspace with this roster. You take a look at and I know people love to talk about the Digiday thing with Enemy, but don't let it slip by that Enemy's been top 10 3 times in land situations. Like, yes, there have been mistakes made, but this is a BR. A lot of times mistakes are made. There's 20 teams in a game. Everybody's trying to win. There's going to be circles with like 17 squads remaining where you're just trying to find a spot. Enemy has been there and he's done that. So I think Enemy right now, when I was watching and listening to their comms, and just getting to see from his perspective what he's doing, overall just very solid right now. I think he's playing some of the best Apex he's ever played. So don't let that slip your mind either. Like enemy is potential. Like I could, once again, I do think I could see Twisted Minds making a deep run into the finals once again. Like I think that this was a team when Stallions made it for Sapporo, you looked at it and you said, cool, Alba's going back to a LAN. That's a really good story. That's where it stopped. You're like, that's a really good story. I think this is much beyond just being a good story now. I think this is a really good team. And I think this is a team that others need to be very careful of and watch out for going into the open. Dawn, any other teams that stand out to you from this group?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see Seoul. They are definitely a team. They're out of APAC South, and for those who don't know who that roster is, sorry, I am bringing them up really quick on my side, but that is Sharky's team. They are a team that is definitely just on paper is shaping up to contend at this LAN, because that is the roster of Sharky, Jesco, and Legacy. And for those who don't remember, Jesco and Legacy were the members of Guild who definitely had a breakout year last year with multiple top 10s. I think their worst finish was 12th here at Sapporo. But again, if 12th is like your worst of the year, then I would definitely say you had a pretty good year. So I'll definitely be very interested to see with Sharky coming into the fold how well they could perform, because again, you're adding a player like Sharky who, you talk about been there, done that. Like he has been there and absolutely done that with winning multiple lands alongside Zero in the past. So definitely a team I'm keeping my eye on, and definitely a big shout out to Souls York for coming into Apex as well. So it's definitely gonna be a lot of I think good things coming from that roster when it's all said and done. I think this might be a team though where you've kind of said like there's some teams that you talk a lot about, but they don't end up making finals. I think this could be a team that not a lot of people are going to end up talking about, but they make finals. Like
Ooh.
I think it's going to be very interesting to see, especially just with the experience that this roster now has. I could very easily see them make a finals lobby, which again, now that I've said that, they probably won't. So we'll, best of luck to them breaking
First team out.
yeah, first team out. So best of luck. Hopefully they can be, breaking the Don curse, but no, in a serious note though, like I fully expect them to have a very, very solid land and would not be surprised at all if they made finals.
All right, Don, I saw this team on here and I just had to ask. You probably don't have a lot on them, but I need to know about Oiled Thunder. Give me something on Oiled Thunder right now.
Yeah, I can go bring them up real quick. They are a Challenger Circuit team. They currently sit fifth in APAC South Challenger Circuit. Like you mentioned, there's not too much data out there on them. They're all making their first LAN appearance, and they've never played a pro league before. So it's gonna be one of those things. It's like you're kind of just throwing it against the wall and kind of see what happens. We'll see what this team can do. Yeah, it's honestly just shout out to the name. I mean, I think that's my big analysis I can give you is just shout out to them. But yeah, their team out of APAC South, a couple Australian players, I believe another player from Hong Kong. So yeah, definitely wishing them the best of luck. But shout out to the name. Thanks for bringing that.
Shout out to Oiled Thunder, ladies and gents. Shout out to Oiled Thunder, ladies and gents. They're gonna win the name for sure. They've won the name. As far as the logo goes, unfortunately, they did not put Twisted Minds logo on this graphic, but I'd probably go Twisted Minds. I love the Twisted Minds logo. Jumbo, you'll see sometimes on the show, he'll wear the hat, and I love that logo. So I'm going to go Twisted Minds. Congrats. You guys have won an Oiled Thunder. You're right there with them. You are right there with them.
Just going to say it now, if Twisted Minds has any version of their jersey at this land that they had, I'm grabbing it. And so that means they're going to probably be last. So sorry again for the jersey curse as well. But yeah, definitely snagging that. That jersey was absolutely goated,
the only problem I had with that jersey, I wish the pinstripes were white. Because I'm pretty sure the pinstripes were black, were they not?
I honestly can't remember. I think you're right, though. I think they were black.
If the pinstripes were
white,
white,
probably would have gone. That probably
would have went so hard with like the pink logo with like the green, whatever that seafoam green that they got going. It would have been so cool. But yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we could have a whole different show for jersey analysis. 100%. Honestly, let's move on into the next group here. We're on our final two. Let's go into the next one here. This is group number 7. And Dawn, there are some big names here. We've got Envy that stands out to me. Let's talk about Envy to kick it off. Now, this was a team that I had said before Pro League had started, when the team had first formed, I said, if you put on a piece of paper all the roles that you wanted to fill on a team, you wanted an anchor, you wanted an IGL, you wanted a fragger, and you wanted a great coach, they went in and they put together exactly that. So with Team Envy, they haven't had their best days, but they also haven't had the worst days. Where do you stand with Team Envy right now?
Yeah, like you mentioned, and like I've put even in my notes, like individually in their roles, they're players that anybody would absolutely take on their roster, right? And even going into the coach with Talmadge, I think that group together can definitely make an impact at LAN. The biggest question is how big is it going to be? Is it going to be where they're still trying to figure out some certain dynamics within the team to where that it puts them maybe in the losers round early, or are they able to be one of those teams that frags out early on, absolutely rolls through some lobbies and builds some early confidence to where when they get to those later rounds, they're already primed and ready to go. So I'll be very interested to see. I've always been a huge fan of Drops as an IGL. It's somebody I've watched quite a bit of his game just to better understand Apex as a whole. So, and I think it's one of those IGLs that's like on that short list of like, I don't want to say deserve because there's a lot of people that deserve it, but just somebody that like when they hopefully win a LAN, it's like you're going to be very, very happy for. Because again, I think it's somebody that's been around the space a long time. Obviously had the stuff go down with Optic when they were one fight away against NRG from arguably probably the most dominant performance in a LAN final ever, to then obviously not winning that, to Optic breaking up and everything else that happened after that. So I'm definitely very excited to see, and especially, we got Zap coming over from TSM, RIP TSM, shout out to, and then Sykes coming over as well. So it's going to be a very interesting team to watch. The biggest, again, question for me is Zap going to be a guy that's going to be on the front line the whole time, or is it going to be Sykes actually? Because in one of their first match days, they had Sykes on the Ash, the Wraith, the Altar, where Zap was on Fuse and Rampart. And the second match day, they had Zap on Altar and Bang, and Sykes was on Cat and Fuse. And if you remember right, that first match day is the one where they got third. So I'll be very interested to see if the dynamic shifts to Sykes being a little bit more on the front line, whereas Zap's a little bit more on the Fuse and Rampart, or if they stick with Zap being like the Altar Bang, and going from there. So what are your thoughts with this roster?
Yeah, I think that once again, this was one of those teams that I said before the season had started that I think are going to come away with some hardware by the time year 5 comes to a close. And I still think that. I mean, like you mentioned, they the questions really just come down to, are they able to figure out their roles and confirm them and make sure that everybody is playing to their roles. When you talk to a guy like Zach, when he's bringing up VP and he's saying Slayer, sometimes you need a guy who just knows his role and sticks with it. That's the only tough part about this team is I feel like they're still trying to figure out what roles each individual is going to play. But if they can figure that out, the talent speaks for itself. The coaching speaks for itself. So I still think that they are a incredibly dangerous team, especially in this group. And once again, I don't want to spoil my predictions too much, but I believe I'm going to have them either dark horse or sitting around like 5th, 4th, something like that. Actually, you know what? Because it's dropped, I got to put them 6th. That's the drop special. I got to put
the drop special at 6th.
I got to put them 6th. I got to put them 6th.
Absolutely.
I wanted to move on to Fnatic because Fnatic has been a name in Apex Legends that has been talked about forever. And this version of Fnatic has undergone a little bit of a facelift. Dawn, would you like to go through and kind of give an update on this Fnatic squad for people who may have tuned out since Sapporo and haven't really paid attention much to APAC North?
I'm glad you asked because this, I just will give you a little sneak preview before we do our top 5s and stuff. This is my, like, if I had one team outside of the top 3, this is the team I want to watch the most. Because, like you said, they've gone over, they've had a complete roster change. Yuka's the only one remaining from that roster that was at Sapporo. They've got Colonel Garcia, who comes in, that was on the New Jay rosters. And you have Libel Ace that comes over from Meteor. A cool story on them real quick was that Yuka was actually pondering retirement. And Libel Ace actually hit him up. And basically, I believe it was loosely translated to make me great. And so, which is a hard line to say the least, and a hell of a recruiting pitch to say the least too. But Yuka decides to team up. They pick up Colonel Garcia, which, for those who don't know, Colonel Garcia, I've never seen a team so many times be dead middle zone more than his team was. I don't know how he did it. I don't know if he just is God and just knows where the middle of the zone is going to be. But the number of times his team is just dead middle zone and is just able to pick up easy placement points, I'm very interested to see if that dynamic, along with the mechanical skill that Libel Ace and Yuka bring in fights, can be the thing that gets them over the hump. Because they also bring in a new coach who was with Meteor, I believe, as well, if I remember correctly. So there's a whole structural change with them. So I still think we'll obviously see them absolutely frag out with lobbies. And especially early on, I think they could be one of those teams that puts up some crazy numbers. But I'm really excited to see what this roster can do, because I really think if all the pieces hit like I think they can, I think we'll see them on match point. I think we'll see them competing with the top teams in the world, and I would not be surprised if we finally see the Fnatic champions split 1 New Orleans.
Wow. Okay. There we go. Now, is there a team that is a dark horse or potentially a team that not too many people are talking about that you think people should keep an eye on?
I mean, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Huss, right? I think that
was going to be mine. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, I think Huss is going to be a very interesting team. We've got 3 guys that have had good success in the past, but kind of took a little bit of time to either do some content creation, or they had left their team, or Skittles' case, I believe he was battling some sort of back issue that kind of took him out of last split. So it kind of took him out of, playing in champs and things like that. but we've got Dupe, we've got Gent, we've got Skittle. I mean, if you would talk about three guys that just fit naturally, just personalities wise, like I think you'd have a hard time really finding too many other teams in the world that just like all three guys just seem to be on the same level. And I think that you see it in their gameplay as well. I think they're definitely a lot of times on the same page when it comes to decision making. Dupe, when he's at his best, another IGL that puts his team in really, really good spots, and they pick up a lot of placement points. I think ultimately what it's going to come down to, again, is a dynamic thing. Are they going to have Skittles on like a crypto to where that he isn't necessarily the first person to a fight? Or are they going to have somebody else playing like a crypto character or a backline character and have Skittle play like the Ash? So where he's one of the first people in the fight where, I mean, we've seen the highlight films of Skittle in fights. That guy can absolutely frag with anybody. And absolutely could be absolutely, again, just ridiculous in fights. So I could probably say absolutely about 10 more times to make my point across, but it's going to be really interesting to see how this team plays out at a tournament. And again, not, barely even mentioning Gent as well. He's been a guy that's been there and done that, dating all the way back to the, the times with like G2, all the back times like Solafide. He's been around the block once or twice, and just really excited to see him back at LAN. Actually got a chance to meet him in LA, and a very chill guy. Really a good guy to pick his brain kind of about how comp works for him and things like that. And I know his big thing about, he was a fan when he was there and not playing. So he had mentioned wanting to get back to LAN and getting back to the main stage, and just really excited to see these three guys come together. You got any thoughts on Huss?
No, I think you hit it pretty perfectly there. I'm just really excited to see Fresno State legend Gent do his thing.
Shout out Fresno State.
That's about that. But I do, speaking of Gent, I guess this kind of goes into it. I wanted to talk about Source Gaming, because from this team from APAC South is having Designful fill in because one of their players can't make it.
What a late headline, right?
Yeah, like what the hell is going on there? I didn't even know that. I just wanted to, honestly, I saw their logo. I was like, let me check this team out because I liked it. And then I saw Designful is going to be filling in. Now, Dawn, you probably have a little bit more like insight on this. Is he IGLing?
So that actually is something that I am not too sure because it's so brand new. I believe it was literally like maybe a week ago, maybe even just this like past couple of days that he's actually gotten in and scrimming with them. I had saw he had turned on his stream and he was actually back on Apex, and he said something about like, new chapters, same author. I was like, damn, that goes crazy, but like, what the hell could that mean? And yeah, it turned out the next day he ends up being announced as the sub for Source Gaming. So I'll be really interested to see. We got to pull up their stuff real quick. But Source Gaming was actually a team that came out of the preseason qualifiers in APAC South. They actually are sitting 6th overall in the region for kill, or 6th overall in Pro League, 5th overall in kills. So you add in a guy like Design who doesn't need an excuse to fight, and put him with two other guys that are also really good at fighting. I'm going to be really interested to see what the dynamic is, because I put in my notes, is he going to be a guy that they're going to try to change for and kind of mold around him to make the transition easy? Or is he going to try to learn Metro's role and kind of what Metro is doing? That's who he's subbing in for. Is he going to kind of just take over what his duties were? Looking at Metro's characters, he was playing Newcastle Fuse the first week, and then Newcastle Fuse Alter. So not necessarily things we've seen a ton out of Design with. So I'll be very interested to see, Pan, another guy in the roster, has been playing Wraith. Do they maybe put Design on the Wraith and see if they can kind of shift things around a little bit? So a really interesting and kind of fun storyline to follow, right? I think any land that has Design only gets better. And yeah, I'm just really excited to see it. And I know you're a big fan of Design, so I know you're really excited to see it too.
Yeah, I mean, this is another situation to me where there's no pressure here. I mean, for Source Gaming, you lose one of your players, he can't make it. You're like, okay, well, that sucks. And then if you're Design, you're like, oh, I don't have a team right now. I'm just going to hop in and play. I mean, I've been playing this game forever. I've been to these lands before. So why not? I think that this is a perfect situation for both parties. You have one team who doesn't have their teammate and is like, whatever we get out of this, we get out of this. And then you have the perfect situation for Design. He was like, I was playing Dark and Darker all week, and then somebody asked me to play Apex. I might as well just hop in and play some Apex. So I don't know. Once again, a situation where you could look at it and be like, there's no pressure. Like, what pressure do they have? And at the end of the day, if they don't do well here, they're still sitting in sixth place in pro league back home. So it's like, whatever, we go for the next split. And then if you do well, what the hell, man? Like you get yourself maybe some experience in a finals lobby, and you get to play with one of the greats. And so I don't know, man. I would be keeping a close eye on Source. I'd be keeping a close eye on it. It's going to be an interesting story for sure.
Yeah, definitely one that's gonna be a lot of fun too. Because, like we said, any land that I think that's design is, we're just gonna wait for those pop off moments, right? And you would talk about championship celebrations. That's not a guy that's gonna shy away from that.
Nope.
And yeah, I'm definitely. It'll be a very interesting dynamic though to see for somebody who doesn't necessarily know as well. Does he pop off as much as he wants to? Is it a little bit more tame because he doesn't know these guys as well? It'll be really funny to see. It's two Aussies though, and if from anything we've seen from Australian players, they will let you know how they're feeling. You think of Sharky, you think of Jen Burton, or you think of a Zero as well. They're not going to shy away from the big reactions, the big pop offs. I wouldn't be surprised if they're already hugging and stuff if they have a good performance, knowing how design can be with teammates. So it'll be a lot of fun to see.
And once again, design fits the mold of a player who maybe they get off to a bad start early, but then make a crazy run through the losers rounds. I mean, just thinking back to Sapporo, the fact that they missed the cut by 1 point after having some of the worst starts I've ever seen, and then bouncing back in the way that they bounced back. Everybody in the arena wanted them to make it. We were all rooting for it so hard. And that's what makes a design fun, man. I think when everything's all said and done, you want to talk about guys who made a difference. It's not always the guys who win the trophies. Sometimes it is the guys who brought the personality, who brought the flair, and design is the king of that, I think. And he's always fun to talk to and have on.
I think the only question for that roster is just who's going to carry the boats.
Exactly. That is, boats, bro. I would not be surprised if he's got them on some sort of regiment of it's going to be fun to watch for sure.
It's going to be awesome for sure.
Do you have any other teams in this group?
I mean, yeah, glancing over it here, I think we'd be remiss if we don't talk about ROC Esports, because that is Snipe Down coming back to LAN.
Hell yeah!
Like, what an absolute what
another
a wild
big story.
Yeah, what a wild ride that roster has been through. I mean, we see obviously the players in themselves. When it was Reps, it was Vaxlon, it was Deeds, all coming together from their own unfortunate endings to other situations. You had Deeds leaving the Tripods roster after so long. You had Reps, obviously, with his story history. Shout out TSM again. I'll keep plugging them as many times as I can. But the number of times that we've seen Reps at LAN and him do well, now he leaves TSM. You had Vaxlon with the unfortunate separation from Furia, how all that went down. You see them come into Pro League. Oh, they get sixth their first day. Are they cooking with gas? Do they got something going on with this roster? And then Reps announced that he wants to leave. The reasons for that have been a little kind of back and forth with he said. So I don't really want to comment too much on the exact reasons to why he's leaving. But I mean, they then go out and they find Snipe Down. I mean, what a sub to find for somebody that's been there and done that in esports. He then gets the analyst desk here for Apex, and now he's freaking back playing on the main stage. I mean, I know I was shocked when I saw that. I don't know what your reaction was when you saw that.
It's another thing, just like design, where it's it's better if they're there. It's better when they are there.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, it'll be very interesting to see, because again, really, I don't really know if there's some big overarching question with these guys, because there's just so much that's happened. It's
I just feel like it's another no pressure situation.
Yeah,
again,
you hope that's how they play. You hope that they just go in and it's Vaxlon's been tweeting well, the first week IGL was in scrims, the second week's going to be on LAN, so we'll see what happens. So that's kind of typical Vaxlon banter there. But I do hope they play loose, because again, we've seen all three players at different times have levels of success when it comes to Apex, and Deeds has just been a guy that I think you've been waiting for his moment to kind of pop out on a LAN stage and really show his capabilities. Because I know, just even watching him on Fuse, he's got some crazy fuse ults, some crazy plays he's made on that character, which I hope he gets to kind of express himself in that way on LAN. And again, you hope they go in, they don't play with any pressure, and they can absolutely ball out. But yeah, just another huge storyline that I think we definitely had to go over before we moved on.
Yeah. So names and logos. Atlas is winning the logo 100%. It's Zeus holding up, I think, Earth. And
Earth's
then
on something.
name. Name. Oh, it's the Zesty
I was
Besties,
just
of
gonna say, I was
course.
like, how is it not Zesty
It's
Besties?
yeah, it's the Zesty Besties.
Shout
1,000%.
I do want to mention too, shout out to Nibble Africa. I believe, if I remember correctly, they are the first and only team from Africa that is playing. They are all from
Ooh.
South Africa. Um, and so big shout out to those guys for just qualifying through the way that they did. Again, if I remember correctly, I believe they are a challenger circuit like preseason qualifier team. So in terms of just like any sort of like how far they could get type of scenario, not really sure that they'll be able to, but I definitely wanted to mention that because that is pretty. It's great to see the game spread, to more areas of the world, right? It only makes the
Mhm.
esport better. It only provides more opportunities for people in places that you maybe wouldn't expect. So definitely big shout out to those guys. Definitely hope a lot of things go well for them and they have a good experience. So
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Shout out Africa. Final group here. We've got our final group, and there's some big names in this one. We got Complexity, we got Nine Lives, we got Alliance, Aurora, and then you have GHS Boom. And I kind of wanted to start there, Donnie, because they are winning their pro league currently as it stands. And I don't know a lot about this team, and I'm sure there's some others out there as well who don't. What is making this team tick? Why are they sitting atop right now? What's the difference maker for GHS Boom?
yeah, like you mentioned, they're first overall in their pro league, which you look at the names that are in APAC North. You've got the Fanatics of the world, you got Crazy Raccoon, you've got Riddle Order. You kind of just go down the list of all these teams that are in that region, and then all of a sudden you see, oh, first place GHS Boom, which I'm not sure if they are fully under the GHS professional org. I know they're still using the same logo, so I want to say they are, but I've never seen them called GHS Boom. But anyway, they it's kind of crazy to watch their gameplay because they are swinging into a ton of fights. Yulari Man leads the world with 54 kills in 12 games of Apex, which like it may not seem like a lot for like pubs. That is crazy for professional Apex. Like I don't care what region you're in, I don't care who you're playing against. Like these are still the best teams from APAC North, which again, Japan being one of, if not the biggest region that Apex is in. It's it's just kind of crazy to watch because like again, you just looking at their roster, they don't have a ton of LAN experience. They don't have any LAN experience actually. They have one player that played in Pro League before. They had to qualify to Pro League from the preseason qualifiers. And you watch Yulari Man, and he's not even running the P20s. He's running Eva, which like Eva's great. Don't get me wrong, but the P20s are basically what the Mozams were times two. And you just can't think that a guy that's going to be leading the world in kills isn't going to be using the most broken gun, right? Like you got to surely think he's going to be using the most broken gun. But their biggest thing I've just been impressed with is just their chemistry in fights. They always seem to know where each other is. They always seem to be able to, Yulari Man will definitely be the opener. He'll definitely be able to get in and dash out and not get downed. Like that's the biggest thing I've noticed is how many clean wipes this team has, which allows them to kind of go to the next fight, which is all I can ask for when you're an aggressive team is just not going down because that avoids the third party, obviously. So it's going to be really interesting to see if this play style carries over to LAN. Again, just seeing how aggressive they are. Some of those teams, when they come to LAN, it doesn't quite work out the same just because so many teams want to go play zone, right? So there's less teams on edge for you to fight. So I'll definitely be interested in seeing what this team does. They're pretty traditional when it comes to their comp. Yulari Man was running the Ash, starting most games. He moved over to Ballistic there for a while, so shout out Ballistic. I know that's a big thing on this pod, the Ballistic character. But yeah, gonna be really interested to see what ultimately he does because I know Mad Maggie is the other character he's really big on. And I know there's very few Mad Maggies of people that are playing on that character. So definitely going to be somebody interesting to watch. Definitely going to be a team you need to mark your eyes on. And for any team that's in their group, good luck, because I know I don't want to land near them, and I don't want to fight them early on if I don't have to.
Yeah, and if it's not them, it's going to be Alliance. Alliance probably playing the best Apex overall, I think, over the last year,
Yeah,
and they're going to be a tough out for any team to try and bounce back from. And even though they're not winning their pro league right now, obviously Navi's absolutely insane. This is still a team you have to take serious care for. That you got to pay attention. They're still here. They're in this group. I mean, I don't really feel like I need to say anything about Alliance. I feel like everything has kind of already been said. They're incredible. They're looking to make another run here, and I would not be surprised if once again they're in that final running. You're watching the final game take place, and Alliance is in a circle on match point, and you're thinking, "Oh shit, here we go again." I would not be surprised in the slightest.
yeah. No, like you said, there really isn't much more to say. Again, the team that was the best of all of year four, especially in the latter half of the year, ultimately is what do they bring to year five with legend bands? That's really the only big question if there is one. But I mean, with that roster, with Hawkes and with Unlucky in effect, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they absolutely aced the legend bands and put themselves literally in the same exact spot that they were in. So yeah, I think the next thing we can just do is there any other big names or any other teams you're looking forward to watching?
I have to talk about complexity, just because there's a lot of pressure on complexity. We talk about some teams that don't have any pressure. I think a team with the most amount of pressure, at least from my perspective, is complexity because they do not have an org after this event is over, at least from what Monsoon has said.
Yes.
Looks like the org was going to support them through the open. And then after that, they were going to be kind of on their own, trying to figure out what was going to happen. Not only that, but their first 2 days of Pro League were very meh and things did not go well, and especially their second one. Just overall, not a whole lot of uh, cohesiveness. They just seem to be spread out all over the place. Monsoon's getting upset at certain things going on, and he has all the right to. They also had the coaching change, which was very public and kind of nasty, which you had to deal with that. You just have so much going on with complexity right now, and it's super unfortunate because this has been my team. Obviously back to Sapporo, I was rooting for them hard, and they I think had one of their best moments as a team, at least just for Monsoon and Kimchi together, winning that game in finals. And I think they eventually end up in sixth place. And then they kind of go from that to their current form right now, which is just not where they want to be. So I think there's a lot of pressure on complexity. Where they place and how they do can really affect a lot of things moving forward. Now, I do think that Monsoon will end up in a spot that will be beneficial. For Funk and for Kimchi, I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do moving forward. Just from listening to the comms, it sounds like there's just a lot of, I don't know, frustrations from Funk. Um, and so I just wonder what happens after this. I mean, we've seen rosters kind of break apart mid pro league and stuff like that. And unfortunately, this is one of those teams where I feel like that could take place. And I don't want to see it take place because I really love rooting for this team. But I just feel like that's where they're at right now. So I don't know. Do you have anything else to add on to complexity, Don?
Yeah, I think you mainly covered it. Like you said, it's just, I think this is just one of those things that goes beyond the X's and O's of Apex. And it really just is like what ultimately is going to be the mood and the vibe of this team coming into this land with so much that's already happened. Like you said, with a lot of it being public, with the org, with the coaching situation. What ultimately can you expect these guys to be able to do at a land? Obviously, they're professional players, so you like to think they're able to put stuff behind them and just focus on the games, but they're still human at the end of the day. So like it's one of those things that it can be very tough to get past certain things that are going on within the roster or things that have happened. So I think ultimately I'm just looking to what ultimately is going to be the vibe and the mood of this team, because I think when they're at their best, obviously we've seen the pop-offs, we've seen the videos of them in the hotel room doing the antics that they have, and that's when you see like the best versions of complexity. Whereas I just don't really think you have like those same vibes, right? Like you don't really have those same moments where you kind of see that lightheartedness. It very much is a lot more of a serious, stressed tone right now that really when you get that with any team, they're not going to perform at their best. So hopefully they're able to get some past some of that stuff because again, Monsoon, Kimchi, two guys that everybody loves in the scene. A lot of funny moments with those guys, and obviously Funk being a very good young fragger in this game. You ultimately hope that they can make it work, but like I said, I think you covered most of it. It's ultimately to come down to if they can get past the vibes and stuff, everything else going on.
Now, all that being said, I'm still 100% C's up. I'm still rocking with complexity the entire tournament. I'm going to be, if they have a booth there, I'm getting a jersey. If not, my goal for this land, because the last two I've wanted to, but I didn't get a chance, I need to meet Kim. I need to meet Monsoon. So I'm trying to make that happen. That is my goal for this land because I love those two so much. Kim, been on the show twice. Awesome time. Monsoon, obviously, he's only been on once, but Jumba told him about this was the hat, by the way, that I moved from my left kneecap to my right kneecap, and I feel like it chalked the vibes. So that's on me, boys. That's on me. This is the hat right here. He told Monsoon about it. And then the fact that after every single game, I would walk all the way up the stairs, walk in the same circle about 15 times until the game started. And then I couldn't leave the circle until I heard the first bullet get shot from the next match. So he heard about that and he was like, he brought the energy. So I need to make sure I tell Mon when I'm there that I'm trying to bring the energy again. And mind you, the energy can come from anything random. If they're doing well and I'm doing something specific, I might have to do that the rest of the day. Like if I just happen to be taking my hat off, like brushing my hair back every time they pop up on the screen, I might have to do that just to try and get the vibes right, just to make sure the team's doing well. And I'm going to have to do that even harder now with the current form that they're in. But I'm going to be rooting for the boys hard. I want to see complexity do well. I'm just going based off of what I've seen recently. It hasn't been the best run so far for the boys. So I'm hoping they can bounce back from it. And I'm excited to see what they can do. But we'll have to see. Any other teams, Don, from the final group?
Yeah, I'll go through just kind of hit these teams really quick. There's two NA teams and two non-NA that I just want to run through. Movie Star Koi, that is a fun FPS's team. Definitely had some solid moments so far. Blinkster is the IGL. A lot of really good things I've heard about him with his IGL and style. Can they make an impact at this LAN? And can they ultimately have their zone style work out for them? Nine Lives Esports, we saw them the last NA Pro League go back-to-back winning the first two games. Obviously, the insane clip that was in the last episode of the Apex the podcast. So make sure to go listen back to that and watch that clip. Literally by a pixel, winning the second game. But they're definitely a team that has definitely shown some form. That is a Vane's team with Cersei and McLovin. Very solid roster that's played well. And then I think we'd be, again, another team we have to mention is Aurora. That's in this particular group. They're not playing as well, I think, as we've seen Aurora teams play in Pro League in the past. I thought in the Legend Band system, they might be able to show a little bit of creativity that we know they like to have with like Mirage picks in the past and things like that. Again, shout out to our boy Jumbo who dropped the video on them. So definitely go look at that as well. But I'd be very interested to see how they handle the Legend Bands on LAN and see if they kind of express their own individual play style that we know that they can. And the last team I'll just mention is Rival Esports. They're an all Thailand team. They are fifth in their pro league right now, fourth overall in kills in their individual pro league. A very inexperienced team when it comes to LAN and things like that. I believe they just have a couple players with one appearance so far, but they've been a team that has made the Fuse pick work very well for them. And that if I had to pick one character I'm very interested to see gets used at this, it's actually the Fuse, because I really think it's a character that a lot more teams could be getting a lot more out of. So I think they're a team that seems to be leaning heavily towards that character pick so far. And if he doesn't get banned, who kind of can ultimately tap into the potential I think that Fuse could bring. So,
okay. All right. Well, ladies and gents. Oh, actually, hold on. I didn't do the logo and the team name. Let's see. Logos complexity. It's got to be complexity. Team name complexity. Congrats, they won. Congrats, they won their group. Congrats, C's up. C's up. I'm gonna be hitting the C's up at land. If you see us, say what's up. Hit me with the C's up. That's what we're doing. Complexity.
Fair enough.
Congratulations, you just won your group. Ladies and gents, that should just about do it for our open preview, man. Wow. We talked about all 160 teams in depth. Can't believe it. It's never been done before.
Never been
We
done.
did it. It's never been done. But ladies and gents, thank you guys for tuning in as always. We are going to be there in Louisiana hanging out. If you guys see us, say what's up. Don't be afraid. Don't be shy. Say what's up. We're super excited to be out there for the Open. It's going to be super fun. Cannot wait to see how this thing plays out. It's going to be interesting. I'll tell you that much. With all the stuff we've learned about this event so far, it's going to be one hell of an event. And so it's going to be fun.
Format's going to be crazy. Again, double elimination, something we've never seen in Apex before. Could see one of your favorite teams having to battle it out and play about 30 extra games than anybody else. It's gonna be something that's gonna be a lot of fun to watch. You got a winner you want to pick real quick before we go?
Oh shoot, we got to do predictions here. Okay, predictions. My winner prediction. I feel like there's no team in better form than them right now. I'm very confident in this team moving forward, and I think giving them the added confidence of playing a bunch of teams that are not to their level and then heading into these lobbies and getting better and better and better. My winner is going to be Shopify Rebellion. I have Shopify winning this thing. I feel like they are just in prime form right now. I've got Shopify winning. I think if I had to pick a second place, I'd probably go Alliance. And then if I had to pick a dark horse, actually, let's do top three. Third, I'm going to go Navi. And then if I had to do a dark horse, I'm picking Team Envy.
I like that. No, those are good. Yeah, again, I think all four of those teams easily could make a finals lobby and end up winning it, obviously. So a lot of big names there. I think for me, I think ultimately I know we haven't necessarily seen them necessarily crazy pop-offs yet. I just have a feeling that Alliance is going to take this one. Mm-hmm. I just think that, again, I think they're using Pro League more to kind of experiment with things and kind of figure some things out. I know Hal is famously quoted as saying, like, Pro League is practice to us for the LAN. So I think Alliance is taking that same route and just trying some things, seeing what they can figure out and take it to LAN and absolutely fry out. I think it's just hard for me to look past the combination of Effect and Unlucky along with Hawkus. So they're my winners. I'm going to say second. I'm going to say Falcons. I just think that I don't think anybody's going to say that they'd be shocked if they're there. I just think a lot of people, like you mentioned, love to talk negative about this team and say, oh, they're washed, like they're not a super team, this, that, or whatever. I just have a really good feeling that I think that they are going to truly show the best version of themselves at this LAN. And it may come to some surprises for people, but it won't be for me. I really think that they will absolutely show out and play to their potential. And I think my third place, I'll agree with you. I'll throw in Shopify as well. I think they're going to be right in the mix. I know I literally just picked the three teams that everybody's probably going to pick, but like, it's just hard in the legend band system that allows even the good teams to play like even more characters and express themselves even more. I just think that those three teams will definitely stand above the rest. And I think, like I mentioned before, my team I'm going to be really looking at is going to be Fnatic. I just really think that if there is a time, I think a lot of people aren't talking about them. I think a lot of people think that the roster changes were too much and that they won't perform, that Libel Ace and Colonel Garcia don't have enough experience. But I think that with maybe a little bit of pressure taken off, and with Yuka's experience, I have a really good feeling that they're going to do something crazy. And like I said, if we see them leaving New Orleans with a trophy, it would not surprise me to the slightest.
There we go. There we go. Now, ladies and gents, those are our predictions. Don't forget to drop yours below in the comments. We want to see. I want a first place, second place, third place, and then I want a dark horse, a team maybe nobody's really talking about that you could see winning the whole damn thing. If you really love the show, I want you to throw in your sixth place team as well, because I picked Envy for my dark horse. Would not be surprised if they won the championship of getting sixth place. That's something for me that I keep close to myself. Okay, ladies and gents, thank you guys for tuning in. As always, once again, we'll see you guys in Louisiana. If you're not there, enjoy the Open. We will see you guys after it is done. We're probably going to be uploading episodes while we're there as well after each day. May not be fully in depth, but we're just going to be talking. It's definitely going to be more relaxed. We're going to be having some
A lot of
beers,
vibing out.
a lot of vibing out. But we might even go live, to be honest with you. But we're going to be having some shows there as well.
Probably an LA feel for anybody that watched those. It's going to be a lot like that. So a lot more reactionary,
like
a lot of good times. Hopefully maybe get Jumba and Jay on there if they have the availability. Yeah, it's just, and who knows, maybe get some of the GM boys sneak in. It's just going to be a vibe. It's going to be a great time. And I think
it's going to be a good time.
To it, so.
It's going to be a good time. So check out, if you're not subscribed right now, don't forget to subscribe. But we're going to be doing all those shows while we're down there in Louisiana. Thank you guys once again for tuning in. As always, we'll catch you guys soon for the Open. See ya.